Well, let's see. Which way do we want to rotate this thing? Oh, good Lord, it would be nice. There we go.
Woo-hoo.
Looks like you're getting there. That looks about right.
I did it.
Pretty good.
I did it.
Okay. So, sound check.
Yeah.
Video check.
Hi, everybody.
Disembodied voice check.
Yeah.
The goddess is in the house.
Alrighty, Jeff. Well, I can see the video, but I can't hear the audio. That's one of the frustrating things about it. So it looks like I know we're on the right camera.
Yep. Oh, it looks good.
Okay. So here we are. I'm reasonably functional now, although at maybe 20% capacity, but I'm relatively comfortable, which is an improvement over last week. That we had some fun last week. That was a blast. So I was saying, updating the health condition. They had to remove the testicle, but that went okay, and I seem to be healing up just fine. So the one thing you may see sometime tonight, you may see me go, ow! And there's a little spot right in there that I don't know if there's a stitch against a nerve or something, but anyhow, sometimes it just kind of goes, eek! And hurts like the dickens. But that's apparently not something I can move around. I can push around and not feel it.
Yeah.
And then let's say
All of
for
a
no
sudden,
particular reason, it'll just go eek. So if you see that, don't worry, folks. And I'm in a little bit more casual attire in a bathing suit for comfort right now. And we had a good time out at Lauren's yesterday. That was fun. We actually did that yesterday.
I thought that turned out really well.
Yep. So that was pretty cool, and it did fine with the damp stage 3 resin. It's off on a walkabout. But with the damp stage 3 resin, we knew what we were supposed to get, which was, the other stuff was getting really good recoveries, and we got that same good recovery from that.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question we're going to do is some of the oven baked stage 2 resin, the stuff where we're getting half what we're supposed to. I'm not sure exactly what is in that microwave flux. It's a special blend. I don't know how special, but yeah, Chris. But anyhow, watch it. That'll be the thumbnail.
Yeah, right. It'll throw you out.
But anyhow, so I'm not sure exactly what's in the microwave flux. Lauren reported there's a lot of manganese dioxide in it, but the flux itself is what absorbs the microwaves. And so the microwaves go through the ceramic foam, they go through the crucible, they hit the flux, the energy gets dumped into the flux, and so the heat is actually coming from inside the crucible outwards. And possibly, Chris, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I've got some magnetite out there too. We could try making some stuff. But it seemed to do a good job of reducing the resin without lots of fire and smoke or anything like that. It looked like it was a very controlled reaction. And that's exactly what we're looking to do. So
it looked impressive.
So
really
it looked like it really did the job well. Let's say the next question is going to be, how well will that digest the oven dried resin? My suspicion still is that we have like carbon lattices that are encapsulating gold.
Yep.
And so we got to break that up. Yeah, it was 1250 watts, which is on the top end of a standard microwave. But yeah, that was a standard kitchen microwave. Yep. Rainmaker, I think the whole EV industry is going to collapse here shortly as people are going to be more worried about feeding themselves than the environment 30 years down the road. In terms of rare earth minerals and stuff, you can ask Eva. She's the one that does the research on stuff like that. She'll be giving her tinfoil hat report at about 7:30 my time. It's 6 o'clock my time now. So I'm about an hour and a half. And yeah, it's a standard household micro. Hey, Thousand, how's it going?
8,000.
Yeah, it's a standard household microwave. As a matter of fact, according to Lauren, it's better if you can get one of the older ones with a magnetron tube.
Bigger magnet in them too.
Yeah, but anyhow, so that's what it is. The key is to have basically a box made of that ceramic foam board, and you know, you can see how easy that was. The negative to that one is that it's kind of hard to make some kind of a tray with handles or something when any kind of metal will do bad things. So that is a bit of a complication because it will get hot too. In the video, he said something, I don't think wooden dowel will work. Yeah, you're going to need some ceramic dowel. I know they make it, but yeah.
Yep.
Oh, there. Yeah, I say I'm pretty sure we can come up with something, but good point, Rain. But that's what I see as kind of the negative. Another question, maybe someone out there knows. Hey, Gold Miner, could you take that microwave and stand it on end so you lowered the door like this so you could have that whole stack sitting more in this way? You know? Yeah, it was a standard fire clay crucible. I would not consider a carbon crucible might work okay in terms of because the crucible itself is going to be heating. But yeah, I think that, you know, that's kind of what needs to be worked on now, but it's, you know, technologically it's fairly simple. So we'll come up with a decent solution. Okay, so 1000 says he's turned one on its side. Okay, cool. And another thing we could maybe, you know, you could take that, set it in there with like a pizza paddle or something. That might work also. Well, you can probably disconnect the rotor so that it doesn't turn. Right now, of course, we're not using it at all. We're just, yeah, he's got 4 ceramic squares in there, you know, just like little tiles to support the, I'll call it the oven assembly off of the bottom so that that ceramic, you know, that little motor and stuff is not an issue. And say we'll consider it and we'll probably come up with something better. It did do a good job for what it was doing. The flux is expensive according to him.
I wouldn't doubt that.
For what we're doing in terms of for smelting resin, that may be a perfectly acceptable type of flux. You know, I mean, if that effectively digests it at a reasonable amount of resin. Right now, we believe we're at a high oversupply of flux to resin. Okay, I mean we're pretty confident in that, but too much will not hurt. So the idea is, does it work? Then we're going to see, does it work on the oven dried resin? And then we'll kind of tune things down from there. We want to minimize the total amount of flux, the total amount of litharge. Hey, Tom, we're going to go back in the past, okay? 5 minutes ago, you weren't here. Okay, he has now had his instant replay. And but anyhow, so you know, then it's a matter of trying to maximize efficiency. If we can get good digestion of that oven dried resin, that will be great. In the future, of course, we'll just good. And then in the future, of course, we'll just won't oven dry the resin. But yeah, What are you saying, John? Anyhow. Hey, Pa, that's cool. We got all kinds here from people that are a lot smarter to me than I am to people that are newbies. Sometimes we have people jump in here. We've never seen them before. They don't know very much. They got some kind of a question that's way above their level of expertise, and everyone will just jump in and see what we can do to
help you,
help them out, because that's the kind of people we are.
No, thanks for being here. And if you have a question, type it on there and we'll do everything we can to help you with it, as well as everybody, like Keith says, that's with us here tonight.
As a matter of fact, as an example of everyone getting together and exchanging ideas, somebody suggested for my bottle rolls that I maybe put some paddles in there or something to get more agitation, so that it's tumbling the charge more better. And so I just put some silicone in there, and I think that'll do a good job. It'll be interesting to see how that affects the results in the bottle roll and stuff.
Hello, Bryce.
And I don't know specifically right off the top of my head who you're talking about. I think so, but I'm not sure. Might have been a different one though. I get so many and I'm so scatterbrained that it's hard to tell. And
well, they sent you a picture. Wasn't that the gal that sent you the pictures, all the rock, their ore down there?
Again, I get so many.
That had the short videos. Wasn't she from down in Mexico?
Oh, we have so many. We got there's Walt, Warren, Timko, Karagana. I don't know. Let's see. Nope, that was just some well wishes. I'm saying the evidence tends to indicate no, Chris. These other ones are people I recognize.
Yeah.
And anyhow, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. The graphite crucible itself would heat, but that might work. But why worry about it? Just go with the clay and use this. Well, I know I'm supposed to, but if they don't email me, there's not much I can do, Chris. So anyhow,
go back and look at the notes.
I think that was really cool. It seemed to work pretty well. We're going to be doing more experiments, and there will be more videos on the microwave smelting. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Another point, the tabletop furnace. There was a, I don't think they sent me that.
You didn't
Chris,
get those videos?
I don't.
They're actually even on YouTube, or no, they were in an email, I think.
Yeah. I don't see anything like that here.
You can go to their private channel and get them though.
Yeah.
Because I did look at them, Chris, and it was good looking ore. It looked kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't see it here, Chris.
There was 2 videos.
May have got lost in the shuffle.
Short, 2 minutes a piece or something, showing their ore.
That's possible, John. I believe it would be more efficient if it's going straight into the flux than into the crucible. Plus, graphite is pretty expensive, and in many cases, doesn't seem to be that much more durable than the fire clay. It's certainly a whole lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Just for the physical loading of that stack of stuff, because if you have a crucible that's this big, and then you have to have a lid, and you got to have some, you got to stack. When you saw him putting it in there, it's literally scraping top and bottom at the same time.
Yeah,
he's trying to hold it and this and that. If it was turned on its side, then you might be able to just go like this and go clink and set it on a shelf a lot easier. And thank you, Pa. But that's it. Yeah, Chris, I'm not sure what the deal is. You might, recontact them and
I can find it tonight for you
Okay.
when we're done. We'll pull it up.
okay.
Um,
Let me
and
put it
she may be back on here tonight too.
Easy Lowland.
Yeah. I did watch the 2 short videos they had though, and it was quite interesting. Yeah, Chris, it's going to take some thought to figure out how to approach that.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
well, I would put a shelf in the middle of it, so it's still the same focus theoretically, but yeah. Yeah, that was my thought. Just unplug that motor, pull the wires off it and make sure, tape them up, that sort of thing. That should take care of that. But yeah, say that was cool. And we're working on something that's still confidential at this point. I'm also doing some testing. In some ways, it's almost like testing a new mine, because what I'm doing is testing new equipment on the same old stuff. Now, just got some assays back. I don't know if I mentioned last week, but it was from I took some of that material we were mining in the middle decline and ran it through the Stutenroth mill. Okay.
Yeah.
And the Stutenroth mill has no classification. It just goes through and comes out.
Right.
And so you got a much coarser average grind size than with my mill, because my mill is specifically designed to regrind
Right.
and self-classify.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, because of that, whenever you're making a major change, you basically got to start from the beginning again and say, okay, what does this ore do with this equipment?
Right.
And so it's going to break it differently. The output is definitely going to have a lot more coarse material. So the question is going to be, where do we classify? Do we classify things like that? Just for background, the materials are a little more expensive, as I understand it, John. Like manganese dioxide is more expensive than borax. But anyhow, so where you start is something called comminution, which basically means making little ones out of big ones. Now you have crushers. A jaw crusher, pretty much everyone here is familiar. A gyratory crusher is those big things that they dump trucks into, and it eats it all up.
Yeah, like a bell in it.
A cone crusher is kind of like a gyratory, but a lot smaller, and it's designed for secondary crushing. It's taking big rocks, turning them into little rocks. Then you have something called a rolls. Now you'll see it's between crushing and grinding because it can do both to some extent. If you have your rollers, and they're just 2 steel rollers, if they're slightly apart, then it'll crush to whatever size that gap is.
Right.
If you push them together, it'll grind it much finer, but because it'll pack into a solid, stuck together sand or whatever, it cannot give you a fine grind. Now, this can be good if you don't need a real fine grind and you don't want a lot of undersize. Well, the rolls crusher can be. They're very efficient, both wear and energy efficient. They work very well for that particular application. And then you have ball mills, rod mills, and impact mills, and these will tend to make fine material, and you can crush it down pretty darn fine.
Right.
Now, depending upon what you're trying to do, you may not want too fine a grind. And that's because when you grind the rock up, certain things happen, some of which are good, some of which are bad. Now, in your extraction process, you're generally going to have like gravity, flotation, or leaching. Okay. Now, with either gravity or flotation, you'd like to crush the rock to the point where the valuable mineral is in separate particles.
Liberated.
This is where you need liberation. So, for example, if you have a little sand particle here that has a chunk of gold on it, you'd have to crush it down to where the size of the particles was somewhere around that generally to get that broken loose. So when you're doing gravity or flotation, you're generally going to be seeking mineral liberation. And when you do that, you're going to have to crush finer by necessity. With leaching, you need less, whereas here you need separate particles. Here, if you have a particle with a chunk of gold on the side, as long as that gold is exposed and not encapsulated in there,
Correct.
the leaching solution can get to it just fine. It'll be a
And
little
it's
bit
not too big a chunks of gold.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to go back
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, if you got
Right.
really chunky stuff for hard rock.
Right. Once a certain particle sizes, you're over that, leaching isn't going to be your answer.
Well,
You know,
but the nice thing about that
or a
is
combination of gravity, then
that's what
then
you
the
usually
material goes to leaching.
In a case like that where you have coarse gold, you're generally going to grind it to where it'll liberate
Right.
the coarse gold, do a gravity separation, then leach your tailings from the gravity separation.
Correct.
And the positive thing about leaching is that you don't have to grind it quite as fine, everything else being equal. The negative to fine grinding is time, money. You know, it costs money to grind.
Yep.
And so
Energy.
the finer you grind it, the more energy, the more wear materials you use.
Time, labor,
Yeah,
it all adds up.
your throughput goes down. So you're always trying to grind as little as possible to get away with what you want. With the leaching, if the rock is fairly porous, you could even to some extent have your gold inside
And get
the particle and still get it
leach.
in a reasonable period of time.
Right.
Now, something like that is probably not going to tank leach very well, but it might either heap leach or vat leach acceptably because you have much more time.
Right.
Yeah. And so, let's say you don't want to overgrind. Also, the fine materials are just a pain to deal with. As Chris, mentioned, slimes.
Yeah.
You can't filter them. You can't settle them. They just, it's a mess. So you want to get, ideally, if you had the magic grinding box and you needed to grind to 100 mesh to get it, we'd throw it in there and it would come out all 100 mesh. And that's it. There would be no overgrind, no undergrind. Everything would be the same size. This does not happen in reality. This is magic.
No, that's wishful thinking.
So what you can do, though, to minimize what they call overgrind, is you can have your ore, and then you got your crusher here. Then you have your mill. And then it goes to classification. Okay. Basically, there's various ways of doing it. Screens are one of the more common ones. And then the undersize, the minus goes here, and the plus goes back here. By doing this, you can give it a fairly light grind, scalp out this finer stuff as quickly as possible, send it back for regrind.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of this, in terms of what's the smart thing to do, depends on the mineralogy, the extraction process, and like that. And the only way to find out how well it's going to work is to test it. Now, we did the leaching stuff on my impact mill material. We didn't do a whole lot of classification except to know it's a pretty good fine grind. So that's pretty much a done deal. That's what that machine does.
Mhm.
The Stutenroth is a different matter. That baby, get in that bottom bucket over there, and you'll see some bags.
Mhm.
And
35.
this is tailings,
There's 35 plus.
and then there's going to be another 3 bags.
60 minus.
Yeah.
That's 60 minus.
Yeah, that's the Stutenroth.
35 plus, so that's another.
And see the difference?
35.
Now, a lot of this has been taken for samples. It was actually about up to here before. Some of it went to the assay lab, and some of it, was used in a bottle roll. But basically, here's the 35 mesh plus.
And you can see that the particle size there is quite a bit bigger.
And here's the 60 mesh minus. You see, it's about equal. It's roughly, if you do a split at 35 mesh on the direct output of the Stutenroth mill, you get about 50-50. On the other hand, with the tailings, and because of this is after the stuff has been run through the mill, the agitation tank and stuff,
Right.
and this is not the slimes. This is your 60 mesh minus, and there's your 35 plus, and there's your 35 minus. So you can see this is a much finer grind. Yeah, Chris, only half as much as I used to. But anyhow, so I ground some stuff through the Stutenroth and classified it. Just kind of going by my thought processes, I split it at 35 and 60 mesh because I have screens that size, big ones. So it made it a little easier. And it's like, probably somewhere in there is where I'm looking at.
Okay, not to confuse you.
Uh-huh.
Draw that back on there. The ore, the crusher, the mill, and the classification.
Okay.
I'll just bring up one other point here before. I didn't realize he wiped that off the board, but we'll just
Make a bigger one this time.
okay.
So I can write it all.
Yeah, well, that was good enough, but okay. In a bigger operation, possibly, and you could do this in a small operation too. If this becomes a major factor coming from your mill, or at this point, you could put either a rod mill or a ball mill in this situation and use the ball mill as the classification.
You can also,
And that may be a simpler step with less mechanical moving parts without having elevators and stuff bringing material back around.
you could run it to a separate mill too.
You could do that also, where you're going to, because that's the one thing neat about a ball mill or a rod mill, guys, is you can actually set a screen into that and use it as the classification tool. And it's fairly energy efficient once it's operating over periods of time. Then it's a matter of the feed rate to, force feeding it to the point that you are getting the size classification that you want.
Right.
And it may eliminate elevators or augers or something, bringing material all back around to the main mill.
You can set up a tumbling mill to be self-classified.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And most of the big mines will have it that way.
Exactly.
It'll have an output screen and stuff.
Yeah, but some of them do feed it back to the main.
It can also depend if you have
secondary.
If you have an ore that has a lot different minerals and one's a lot more tough than the other one, the first pass at it will tend to grind up the softer material, and then you really want to change things up a bit to go after the harder stuff.
Then you can go to a separate
a
secondary system.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways of doing it. Now, because on the micro scale, we want to do things really cheap and simple, here's my plan. Right now, for our next size up, the jaw crusher is going to be the RC46. Okay. Now that jaw is 500 pounds per hour plus. Okay.
Mhm.
Which is about what we need. We're looking at 1 to 2 tons a day milling for what we're going to be doing is the plan. From the RC46, the idea is to take it to the Stutenroth here. And the problem with this is, of course, is the classification bit.
Right.
So my thought is we put the classification here, otherwise known as just a screen. I just write screen here, little vibratory screen. Okay, so we have a hopper and a screen on top of the mill.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the Stutenroth. And I just recirculate all the output back to the feed hopper because it's going to get screened again.
True.
And that way, first of all, anything that's already fine enough
Is going through.
never goes through the Stutenroth. It just bypasses it, minimizing the overgrind, minimizing those slimes.
Yep.
Okay. Then as it comes through here, again, you get one lick at the Stutenroth, and then it'll get screened. This is a fairly small thing. As a matter of fact, I have a hopper and a vibratory feeder. If anyone's going to be coming from southern Arizona to Montana with a pickup truck with the bed empty, let me know. I got something for you guys to haul, okay? Yeah. And because I couldn't bring everything I wanted to up from down there. But anyhow, I actually have $1,000 Aritz vibratory feeder, you know,
that would be handy
with a hopper that'll hold like 150 pounds in it, so it would work just beautifully. What I was using to feed the RP4 table I was using. Okay. So anyhow, this is my thought. By putting the screen up here and just moving that material bulk, whether it's a conveyor, just shovel it. I mean, 500 pounds an hour isn't very hard to shovel. That's pretty easy stuff.
No, but
you know,
with the toys that you have available out there, a big auger or something might just be the ticket.
I think we got
something real simple to put together.
The problem is you almost have to have two though.
Yeah, one to go out, one
Because
to go out,
because to get right back over top, you almost have to go two.
I don't know if you put a slide plate in there or something. There's a way to do it.
Yeah, it can be done.
I could stand there and stare at it, and I'd come up with something that'd work.
The old style Stutenroth mill had a big wheel around it like this.
Yeah.
And it was like a water wheel, it looked like, but it was
buckets on it.
No, screen. And so it would come out and be in this screen, you know, and it would get screened. And if it didn't go through the screen, it would come up and then dump it right back in the top.
That's a smart concept,
you know. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking, John. You know, shoveling what? Yeah. You're trying to get rid of that manual labor part.
Well, when we'll finally get it done, yes, exactly. But again, this is
you have to start somewhere.
You know, and you could even maybe take a chute coming out this way, and then the conveyor going up that way, and then another chute coming back. There's lots of different ways to play that game. But by doing it this way, then you have your fairly tightly classified material with minimum undersize going here, and then
you're not wasting energy on it again either, or even more undersizing it.
And then to the agitation tank, and then from here to the tailings pad. Now, this whole system here is relatively simple, but again, what size screen do you use? So that's what those bags were. Again, I got 35 plus, 35, 60, and 60 minus. The 60 minus should be fine. That should work.
Right.
If we can get away with something in the 30 to 40 mesh range,
even better.
It makes it better. And why does it make it better?
Well, because the two sizes there are going to be the bulk of the material. If you can do it at that point, you're not going to have that much energy involved.
Well, it's not just that. It's a lot easier to screen the bigger the screen is.
Oh yeah, definitely. Without plugging and blanking itself out. Yep.
Yeah. the finer a screen you use, the harder it is.
Yep.
Hey, Lauren. Okay, Lito. Anyhow, I'm trying to remember where the heck Ruby is. Oh, I know where it is. Yeah, I've been there. I've been right too. I used to have some claims about 5 miles north of there. That's right. It's just south of Arivaca.
Oh, that's way down there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a no man's land right now. I suggest maybe waiting until the situation gets a little more stable. It was already pretty bad. I think there's more to it than that, John, and I don't think it'll work anyway, but yeah. So anyhow, this is kind of the plan, but the idea is I need to know what size screen that is.
Right.
So again, I got the 35 plus, 35, 60, 60 minus. I've already done bottle rolls.
Oh, you have. Okay.
Now, this material is dramatically different than the lower decline dump, the stuff from the pack rat.
Mm-hmm.
This does not concentrate when you screen it. Okay, all three fractions were within 5% of each other in terms of the assay.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. It is very
so you
consistent.
didn't get any real change there at all.
No concentration with screening.
Well, of course, you're talking gold that's so fine that you can't see it. Probably.
Well, yeah, but the pack rat Penthouse stuff, that stuff, it doubled the grade when you screened it to like 1/4 inch. It doubled the grade. So
that's interesting.
It is. Either one. Ruby is about 2.5, 3 miles line of sight from the Mexican border in a high traffic area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a safe place,
especially after dark. They know you're camped there somewhere.
I say I've done a lot of hiking there, and I have seen let's see,
people, water bottles.
I'm trying to think. I've probably seen more border patrolmen than illegals.
Yeah, that's
true. Yeah, it's been about 50-50. And I mean, we were out there one time with Joachim, and we're just sitting there, shooting, and here comes the helicopter circling around us, checking us out, that sort of thing. So I say it's very. I say it is right there in the smuggling corridor.
That's a good point, Chris. That is weathering.
That's it, but it all depends on the mineralization.
Well,
how exactly is this ore put together? Some concentrates, some doesn't. Both of them are heavily weathered. But like I say, it just makes a huge difference.
Interesting.
Because it's a different deposition there. Oh, there's plenty of things that can separate it, but Johnny, for your safety,
you wouldn't want to do that.
I will make sure.
For Keith's safety,
Yeah.
You didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, Lito, I think there is. Of course, he may be on the payroll too. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's the sort of thing that sometimes you have to do it for your safety. I mean, if they say, okay, we'll pay you $3,000 a month to look the other way or we'll shoot you, what would you do? I mean, I don't blame anyone.
I see nothing.
Exactly. I used to say I've done a lot of stuff there. The Ruby Road is a nice road. It's very scenic to drive between Arivaca and Nogales on the Ruby Road. Very cool. There's a lot of different chemical systems that will, separate gold and silver. It's just the simplicity of the nitric acid and precipitation thing. Almost anyone can do it. You look at the complexity I'm running into here. That's because I want something that's simple, safe, cheap.
Well, you're looking at every possible solution as well as what is the best for your ore. Well, it's a process that you'll go through with any ore. You're going to go through this similar process.
Yeah.
To find liberation and to find where you can get your mineral out, and then taking your mineral to a brick or a block or an ounce or whatever.
Well, right away with my material, it consumes, what was it? Roughly 3 milliliters of concentrated hydrochloric acid per gram of ore just to neutralize it.
Right.
So your consumption would be outrageous if you were trying to use an acid dissolution. You'd have to use so much acid.
Right.
It would be extraordinarily expensive. And
a nightmare.
yeah, I'm pretty sure, Chris. The other thing is that it would be, I say, not only expensive, but the fumes would be horrendous. When you're dealing with small quantities, you can have a little fume hood or whatever.
Right.
When you got a couple of tons of stuff,
Right. Totally different program.
absolutely.
And,
And Lito, if you talk to that caretaker and they say, yeah, you can come down and this and that, get some references, some other people that have been there. It's an area where in general, it gets really interesting. When you see my videos, I'm carrying that 44 Magnum. That's the area I'm in. And that's the reason I'm carrying the 44 Magnum.
You don't want to get disappeared.
Yeah. They lose.
Between the poachers and the drug mules
Yeah.
and the coyote trains, it
Yeah.
sucks rocks. Then again, Arizona sucks rocks anyway.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting down there. They lose 250 migrants a year to weather alone in Tucson sector. Just to the extremes of the weather. You know, they freeze to death in the winter, they die of dehydration in the summer, stuff like that. It's not a good situation down there, so you need to be very cautious and do your homework. It'd be like right now, it'd be a bad time to vacation in Ukraine. But Poland might not be too bad if you knew what you were doing. So that's the information I have on that. It's limited because I just stay away from those things. Another thing, and I will tell you this, if you are in that area and you see something that looks like some smugglers or something like that, Tom, remember 20 minutes ago, ditto. But anyhow, the thing is, if you see something that looks like, 5 guys with big backpacks or something like that, pretend like you don't see them and wander the other direction. They're not generally intent on drawing attention to themselves. And if they interact with anybody, this brings attention. So if you don't look like you've seen them, you're not running, you're not getting on your cell phone or anything like that, you just wander off in a different direction, you're probably not going to have any interaction. If you make a lot of noise and stuff, you're probably not even going to see them because, again, they're trying to remain unseen. They're trying to go unnoticed. On my claims, just north of Arivaca, I was out one time doing the stakes and everything, going through those again.
Yeah.
And there was this one little arroyo that I'd never been to before, just because of the route. There's ridges. It's easier to walk a ridge than climb the side of a hill.
Right.
And so I went down there, and there was at least 200 feet of creek bed that you could walk without ever touching anything but an old backpack. It was just layered in empty backpacks. And it's like, okay, they've hiked the drugs up to here. Somebody comes in on that road, picks up the drugs, they throw the backpacks. And then the funny thing is, the smugglers will wait till morning. Then they just walk out to the road and have the Border Patrol give them a ride home.
Yeah.
Now they might not be able to do that. Might have screwed up their whole plan. They're like, well, take me back to the border. No, we're going to let you go to the United States. I don't want to go to the United States. I want to go back.
They used to take them to
Right
the
home.
holding facility at DM in Tucson, and they'd hold them overnight, give them a shower, process them in, and give them breakfast.
Yeah, but then they usually
can
just
go out
bus
the
them right back to the border.
Go out the back door and go home.
Now you guys might wind up in Seattle for all we know. That screws up the whole plan. You messed up my schedule. Yeah, it's an interesting area, Lito. I haven't personally had any problems there. I I can't recall anyone I know of that had any kind of life and death interaction with smugglers down there. But I know in Arivaca, the biggest group as of years ago was 185 migrants in one group. But again, one American with a pistol outguns 185 people who don't want any trouble and
Right.
perfectly willing to get
Just
turned
keep-
over to the authorities.
Yeah, keep moving along.
Yeah. So I say not a big deal. Yeah, Lito, if you go back through my old stuff and that I was taking representative samples of a dump, that mine is a St. Christopher mine about 4 miles north of Ruby on the Ruby Road. Okay. If you want to see what the terrain looks like, it's really quite beautiful. It really is. But anyhow, so this is what I'm doing right now to try and figure it out. I've done assays. I screened it. I've done assays. I've done the bottle. Well, not completed the bottle because the core stuff
you're working on.
I've still got digesting. I did samples at 24 hours for all threes, samples at 48 hours for the two coarser fractions, and then I'm going to get a sample at 96 hours for the 35 mesh plus, because of course it's going to be slower.
Right. Yeah.
But 24 hours makes sense in an agitation tank, maybe
Well,
48.
it's interesting to know where you are at 24 hours.
But you can easily, I mean, if it goes out onto a tailings pad for disposal, it's going to be leaching for weeks probably.
Yeah.
So say that's what I'm doing there. Oh, absolutely, John. Yeah, Lito, I say if you've got, I say if the caretaker, you can talk to them, find out exactly what the situation is currently. And again, with everything going on, it can be changing fairly quickly. Yeah, pretty much, Lito. And but you have to be aware that things can change fairly rapidly. Temperatures down there are it's in the 4,500 to 5,000 foot elevation, which means that even in midsummer, your temperatures are only up in 90, mid 90s, stuff like that. It's much more temperate. This time of year, it's going to be dropping below freezing at night.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, they
So-
get snow.
late spring, early fall would be ideal times to go there. So that's the weather you're looking at there. It's pretty. During late summer, July, August, and early September, you tend to get thunderstorms very frequently. Like for a week or two, you'll have thunderstorms every afternoon. They can be really intense, 2 to 3 inches of rain per hour. So be aware of that too. Make sure that you're not going to be, your vehicle or you is not going to wind up stuck in a drainage.
Yeah.
You need to be able to park well above the potential water level. And if lightning's coming down, make sure to just sit in your vehicle, get away from the lightning. But wind velocities, I used to sell kettle corn there for decades, and I've seen straight line wind velocities from thunderstorms in excess of 80 miles an hour. So it can be pretty interesting, but it wasn't too bad. Of course, Eva doesn't like it down there because she doesn't like cacti or anything like
Arizona
that.
sucks rocks.
5 dozen minnows, huh? Sweet. I'll get to that later, Lito, because nobody else can see it while I'm doing it. I'm probably sure they could if I knew what I was doing, but oh well.
One of these days.
So I say once I get the results back from the bottle rolls, then we'll make a final determination on our first choice at the screen size for the student rod. And again, we'll see, what seems good, but never said anything in concrete. Oh, that's fine. You could get through there with a Kia, the Ruby Road there. You just have to be careful a couple times. But you never set anything in stone at this stage. It's easy to change the screen on a screen deck.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something that's real critical, but we may choose 30 mesh. And then after we're going to decide we could go to 20 mesh and we're still going to get plenty off of the tailings. I also took samples off of our tailings at the pad there and did some assays on that. There's some serious weaknesses in the ability to analyze it. Number one is I don't have a good head grade analysis. I wasn't doing every batch and splitting a sample and all this other stuff.
Dumping it in.
Yeah. And number two, what I would do is I would drain the agitation tank over to the slimes area first. Then I would open the drain valve and hose out the rest of it onto the non-slimes area. And that's what I was testing. So that is the coarser material, which again throws the skew. But it looks like we were getting probably 80% or better recovery, is my first guess on that. Yeah, I don't doubt it. It can happen. But anyhow, so looks like we're getting in the neighborhood of 80 to 90% recovery.
That's good.
So that's fine.
Yep.
We're doing good.
Yep.
But again, that's where you got to double check everything.
Yep.
Theory is great, but
you have to know. You need to know the answers.
The theory is if you oven dried resin at 250 degrees, you were just dry it. There wouldn't be any problems. Apparently, that theory is incorrect.
Well, and even in plaster or anything else, I mean, if you ask these guys, what are the tailings running? They look at you like, well, I don't know. And it's like, well, if you're not double checking to make sure that your recovery system is working, then what's the basis of the whole thing?
It's like driving down a road by just
blindly,
keeping your eyes closed and I'm going in a ditch. I'll turn this way. Oh, I'm going in a ditch.
Right. I mean, you can recover a certain amount of gold, but maybe one little change or something ups that recovery by 20%. It could be substantial. And you need to know those numbers. You need to realize that I need to know everything about how this works.
Yeah. Answer a couple questions.
Hello,
First
Lauren.
of all, hey, Lauren. Fully rinsed? Yeah, it was fully rinsed. I took the tailings and first of all thawed them out because I had to literally chip them out. They were all solidly frozen. Thawed it. It was about this much in the bottom of a bucket. Pour fresh water in, stir it up, let it settle for a day, decant, do it again. I did that 10 times. So there shouldn't be any dissolved gold still residing in those tailings. That's all going to be solid gold somewhere, gold particles somewhere.
Okay.
Let's see. Could there be a chemical to break up slime? The problem with slimes is they're already broken up. They just flow everywhere. They get in everything. It's silt. It's not like clay.
Right.
Clay's not not the situation we're talking. We're talking about like real fine mud silt. And you just can't filter it.
There's
you
no
can't
separation.
Settle it.
Yeah, there's no.
It's just a pain in the ass. And I mean, that's literally the problem. It's just a pain. That's all. If you had coarser particles, it would just be a lot easier to deal with.
Yeah, because it'd be waste at that. You'd probably get your gold out or silver or whatever you're looking for.
Yeah, I'm assuming on my slimes side of the pad, I've gotten 100% dissolution or pretty close to it just because of the very small particle size.
Right.
And Chris, that it's kind of hard to tell, but we were in the area of at least 80% of what we expected. The expected was actually empirically from the first test because, quite frankly, it was 2.5 times what we initially expected. So it was empirical as opposed to calculated. But he essentially duplicated with a fair degree of precision the smelting we did with the damp stage 3 resin using the other process. Now, clay be gone doesn't work for what we want it to stick together, to And anyway, you don't want to disperse the slimes. You want them to stick. Yep. Chris, I did the same size, 30 plus, 35 plus, 60 to 35, and 60 mesh minus. I got 3 different samples off. And I think that was raw bead, Chris, but you'll have to see about what Lauren tells you. The assays on that showed that the finer grade material, the finer size material, is running about, let's say, I think one was 0.12, one was 0.16, and the 35 plus was running 0.23 or something like that. And our head grade should have been somewhere between 1/2 ounce, 3/4 of an ounce per ton.
Mm-hmm.
So, it should be a reasonably good recovery, but it's not finished. I mean, all that's still on the leach pad, still leaching.
Right.
Come spring, we should get more out of it, And I say, so these are all the different sorts of things that you need to do to figure out what you want to do.
How to get your recovery.
Yeah. Because
how are you going to do it?
Do not guess, test.
Yeah, no, there is no guessing. And I think. Don't say that.
You wouldn't want the pilot on your airliner guessing as to anything, would you?
Or your doctor or whatever. You better do
the test. You had to bring up doctors.
Yeah, you had to do the test.
Actually.
Or the practice.
Actually, Eva came up with a really good idea, because it seemed to me that this was, at least to a certain extent, preventable, in terms of if they could have found out that there was a problem. It might have been too difficult, or more difficult to fix the circulation than to just remove the testicle. But at least we know they could have just done it, and it would have saved me a lot of discomfort.
He probably never asked you about that. That's probably a question they don't really want to ask you going in.
Well,
do you mind if we?
Well, they could have asked me later, but I mean, the thing is but they can do a Doppler ultrasound, and it'll tell you whether or not you got blood flow in your testicle. I mean, they just take the little ultrasound thing, they switch it to Doppler, and it'll see if there's blood moving.
Yeah.
And it's a simple, non-invasive test. And that's like, well, when you're done, why don't we just do the test?
I can't help it, Dave. I mean, it's either you laugh or you cry, right? Well, we're gonna laugh, I guess, and give him shit,
Yeah, it was pretty funny when I was over at Lauren's house first time after all this, and he's got quite a character for a dad. And he shows up and comes in the shop there, and he goes, "Hey, Lefty!" I just thought that was hilarious. But anyhow, yeah, I think Eva's yesterday. He's now a half-wit. I thought, oh, that was harsh. And when you heard Lauren's comment on that,
lost part of it somewhere there.
He said that one hurt me. It was actually farther away and harder to hear, so I actually split the video right then, so I could adjust the volume on that up a little bit, so it was easier to hear, because I thought it was so funny.
Oh well.
But anyhow, so I say that's what we're doing right now. Got a lot of different things going on, and it's keeping me quite busy without me having to pick up any large things.
Well, I mean, Lauren kind of has picked up some extra slack here and doing quite the deal too. That is amazing.
He's quite a help.
That is so cool.
He really is. He enjoys doing this stuff. He's always so cheerful and everything. So it's really cool. But Lauren, just do the exact same charge with the exception of 10 grams of dried stage 2 instead of 25 grams of wet stage 3, and then put some Incord in there. Yep. And let's see. If you get 100% recovery, I ought to get that. I will in just a minute. I'm going to show you, blind dude. But if you were to get 100% recovery out of the stage 2, you're looking at 0.6 grams for a 10-gram charge. So you're going to want to put in like 1.5 grams of silver, roughly. And then if you don't get the recovery, you're just going to wind up turning it into dust and having to filter it out, sort of thing. But that's, we're trying to go with like a 2-to-1 silver to gold ratio, so you can dissolve it and it's still a chunk.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you anticipate at max about 0.6 grams of gold for 10 grams of that material there.
We'll have to take it up and have Lefty put on it.
You know your shorts are falling down, right?
Yeah, well, you want to sit there and try and tighten the belt in the wrong spot?
Oh,
Just saying.
too funny.
There we go. Yeah, Lauren, it's slow season right now, so he's got days where he doesn't have a whole lot to do. He built that exhaust hood in there, and he's helped me out a lot. And so there's days where he just likes doing this stuff, and it's nice because then it gets stuff done when I'm not out there. So it's working out great. But anyhow, what are you doing?
I've been still going through equipment and then, making my notes and trying to locate and get everything ready that I don't have to go to any more stores, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
Be ready. And I've looked at some maps, kind of looking at some new areas to go do a little bit of prospecting in. So trying to get, we still have winter for a while. It won't be anytime too soon. We'll be up in the hills yet. So
over there at Butte, I need to do some research on Montana bee. Is that something that I can do remote, or do I need to go there? Can they look through the stacks or what?
Most of the time you have to go there and they'll point you to which files you want, or
okay,
maybe they'll help you pull maps or whatever you're looking for.
Because I know exactly where it is and what the old name was.
Yeah, historical documents. They'll help pull all that, and you literally have to go there.
Okay.
And you may be there all day. I mean, I always tried to be over there as early as I could when they opened. And maybe
we could go together while she sleeps in.
Yeah.
Hey, blind dude.
Are you going to Butte or Missoula?
Butte. Yeah, well, blind dude, I've been kind of incapacitated myself, at least last week. Oh. Anyhow, so okay, that's what I thought. But that was my idea. If you're going over there sometime, let me know.
I didn't have any plans, but I was actually going to mention that to you too. If you're going over, maybe I'd go with, because I wouldn't mind doing a little digging either.
No, we might talk to Lauren too.
Yeah, there,
Well,
there's some thoughts I have in my head of looking for some.
That means you got to get up at 6 in the morning. Because if we leave here at 8, we get there at 9, then we can get something done
before they close up again.
It takes me 15 minutes to get out the door. You can wake me
Okay,
up.
then you can get up at 7:30.
All right.
Yeah, but that's the problem.
Oh, see, Chris is throwing them in there too.
You just can't resist, can you? See, but Chris, think of it this way. Eva can no longer bust my balls.
Hey, 1,000, thanks for being here.
I can only halfway bust your balls.
Yeah.
So I will do it twice as often.
Taking care, 1,000. And so anyhow, that's basically one thing I was wanting to do, because if you can find stuff in the old records, it's real cheap information instead of having to develop it yourself.
Definitely. And after Eva tonight, I thought I would kind of, I get a lot of people asking me, well, what do you do or what are you working on?
That's a good one, Goldstream. I'll give you a 7.2 on that one.
Yeah, we're going to start scoring these. Yeah.
Goldstream said Keith was only half here last week and only half of Keith is here this week.
Missing part.
She wanted to have the doctor send it home in a jar of formaldehyde.
Conversation piece.
Actually, I thought in a nice pickling brine, so if he really pissed me off, I could fry it up and eat it in front of him with some fava beans.
A nice Chianti and some fava beans, huh? Anyhow, so yeah, that's another thing I need to try and get done this winter. I have been managing to stay fairly busy this winter.
Yeah, the winter's going by fairly good.
Oh, here's another thing. That tabletop furnace, I gotta replace the element on that.
Yeah.
According to I don't know if I did this. We were talking about it, but I don't think I did.
No, you didn't. No.
Yeah.
So go ahead and kind of get into that.
Okay.
What you're doing.
The furnace, the element failed, and the manufacturer answered my email and said, well, there's stuff on it. It's obviously
soot or
gotten coated with whatever. And so the theory he's running on basically is, I presume, is that as you coat it, it can't cool as well. So the actual temperature of the wire goes up higher.
Ahead of it or behind it, one or the other.
Yeah, and therefore the because it forms like a little insulating coating on it. And so now that it's running hotter internally, it loses physical strength and it'll start sagging and stuff like that. And so I think the whole issue has to do with the temperature the element is operating on and the support of the element. Now, there's a couple things I thought of on how to improve this. First of all, we can go to a higher temperature element material. There's something called Kanthal, which is like 400 degrees hotter operating temperature. So if we were running it at the same temperature,
your longevity,
it's going to be a lot,
right?
It's
longevity
much
of the
better
coil.
within its range. Yeah.
Right.
And not yet, Lido. So the Kanthal would be an ideal. Unfortunately, they didn't have any in stock. I mean, they were just out. The 18 gauge Kanthal, they were out of everything. They were out of 16 gauge. They were out. I think they had maybe one thing, 20 gauge. They did have the, at least of the round wire. Now they also make a flat wire where it's got like a rectangular cross section, but I'm not sure how to figure out all that.
Right.
So I ordered 50 feet of 18 gauge nichrome, which is basically pretty similar to what we got. According to the vernier caliper, the stuff in there right now is 17 gauge. Okay. So that with an oxide coating, it may have started out at 18. But anyhow, with 18 gauge nichrome, it should take about 25 to 30 feet spiraled up to make a heating element. And yes, I'll make a video of that too. And yeah, that would do it. 1500 amps. So the plan at the moment is to replace the heating element with a similar heating element that we make ourselves. The manufacturer charges $75 for one of those heating elements, which is a lot more than 10. And by using the right size dowel, we should be able to just spin up our own.
Coil it up. Yep.
And so that's our evil plan. Now, my thought is, another thing is, and Chris, why don't we put a few more ohms on it so that it'll run at a slightly lower temperature. Hey, Wolfman, and
Wolfman.
therefore be have more cushion against coating and everything else. No, blind dude, have not yet. I'm not exactly sure where to get the ceramic foam sheet. And so that's another thing I was thinking, Chris, is to basically just throw an extra half an ohm or an ohm on there and cut the amperage down, drop the temperature by 100 or 200 degrees. It should still get us, in that we're running 1900 degree max right now, and the thing's supposed to go up to 2200. So if we drop 1 or 200 on the heating element temperature, I think it would still work. But that's an interesting question. What do you think, Chris? Well, first of all, if I've never made one before and haven't helped anyone make one before and stuff, theoretically, you get one real quick that's already functional. And ohm in the range. Oh, that's a bad one, Lars. That's bad. I'll give you a 5.2 on that one. Because while it's very thoughtful, it's just not that humorous. So nice try. There's electronic stuff, and oh yeah, that's better, blind dude. It has electronic timers and temperature
Settings,
controllers and something like that. So the measured ohms in the Lauren has a similar tabletop. It has a different controller, and it's got a 10.4 ohm heating element. So I was thinking maybe going to 11 ohms and seeing what would happen. That should cut the amperage down just a little bit, which should cut the temperature. We can always, if it doesn't work good enough, we can just trim it off until we're back to the original 10.4.
Right. Yeah.
So that was my evil plan, and see what happens. But I'm not sure where to get that ceramic foam board, but I know that Lauren said he couldn't get any recently. That when he wanted some, he couldn't just go out and get it like he usually could. So I'm not sure. Okay, blind dude. I say right now we're running 1350 watts at standard 110 volt or 120 volt, whatever it is, line voltage. And that's 10.4 ohms. My calculations were that wattage at 120 volts should be 10.6 ohms. So, that's pretty darn close for my calculation. Hey, Chris, question is, if we were to make the new heating element about a half an ohm more resistance, would we be able to cut the heating element temperature just a little bit to make it more durable? What's his name? Lauren is also working on making an inductive furnace. I would think it would cause the temperature of the actual wire to go down, because with increased resistance, you should get more, a lower amperage, which means lower wattage. So the temperature of the wire should go down. It's all being dumped into the furnace. So it becomes a thermodynamic equilibrium situation. Obviously you can't heat the furnace any hotter than the wire is. Wow, that sounds complicated, Lito.
Yeah, that's over. That's out of our pay grade now.
Will reduce the thermal output, but not necessarily the temperature. Well, how can it be putting out less heat, but not a lower temperature, Chris? I'm very confused about this. Well, all else being the same, yeah. But as I say, we're only changing the resistance. Let's say I was thinking by cutting it, what would that be? 5%. I mean, by increasing the resistance 5%, I might reduce the temperature by a couple hundred degrees. Another thing is I have to ask the rate of heating slows. Yeah. I say that it seems to me that what the manufacturer was saying is because it's got some crap on it, which I presume to be mainly soot from resin. The wire itself becomes kind of somewhat insulated, thermally insulated, and therefore winds up operating at a higher temperature because it's not getting rid of the heat as fast. So that's why I was saying if I can cut the actual operating temperature of the element by a little bit, it should make it more durable.
Yeah, John, that's how it works.
Yeah, KOL as a ceramic blanket works fine. I'm looking more like for the ceramic foam like that. Another thing, does anyone know just ceramic plate, the equivalent of like a 1/4-inch thick ceramic tile, but no glazing on either side? So you like cut a 6-inch square piece and put it in the bottom of that kiln to catch spills and such. That would be very handy to have. And does anyone know a simple material for that? That's, you can go to Home Depot or something and buy. Because if you used a standard tile, then I would think that the glazing would melt. Okay. So that's what I'm wondering. Temperature rise per watt. Yeah. Say I'm thinking just rule of thumb. If I increase this, will that go down? And then say since it would be more resistance, it means more wire. We can always trim it back if we need to. But that was my thought.
You know how much you're over, you can always start working backwards.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. It's just, watts equals amps times volts and volts equals amps over ohms or something like that. Okay, what's it called? Oh, Durham's putty. Can you make a removable piece? Not something you put in there and it sticks in there, but I mean something you can actually go, oh, that one's screwed up, throw it away and put a new one in there. Lower R means higher voltage and lower current. I think that's rock hard. What is that?
That's what water putty is, rock hard. Same.
Okay.
Same too.
That would be great, Lars. Castable refractory, yeah, that would make sense. Potential, would that be like volts? R is resistance. I is I'm not sure. Power dissipated is I to the I squared times R. Lido E equals I times R. Thank you, Lars. I appreciate it. We were thinking if you're going to cast something, if you can put like a textured top surface on so that any spill will tend to go into the divots instead of run to the edge, that would probably be cool too. Ceramic foam and foundry filters.
We'd have to look that up because if you can order something like that, 5-inch by 5, a few pieces to have around, it'd be pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Lido. So somebody's like an unglazed tile. And an edge lip. Yep. I think so. Exactly. I think that would be great. Damaged tile, possibly. Let's say, I don't know. You could always, take a tile and take a grinder to the surface too. Grind off the glazing and then just smooth it off a little bit with a belt sander or something.
I would think you can find what you're looking for. It's just a matter of.
That's what I was afraid of, Chris, is find something that handles thermal shock. Yeah, I know they take crushed fire brick and reuse it. But I want something that's fairly thin, like about 1/4 of an inch would be ideal, because it's a pretty small furnace. It doesn't take much room before pretty soon you can't get those crucibles in there. Aluminum fire bricks, that's a possibility. Take a slice of fire brick.
I thought you could.
I don't know about that, Roberts, because the problem with the sand would be that if you spill something, it can go through the sand. I'd like something that would give a real barrier there. This is going to be for putting on the bottom of the little kiln there, so that if you have any drips or runs, drips, or errors from your crucible, it won't mess up the bottom. It's got to be fairly small. And say cast iron might work, but I don't know. That's going to have a little problem when you're real close to bare wire heating elements, because you touch those, now you're shorting them directly out. That wouldn't work. Yeah, some kind of refractory tile. That's what I'm thinking, Chris. If you see some, send me a link or whatever, because something about 1/4 inch thick I think would be ideal, especially if it's textured on one side so it would catch the drips. That would be ideal. Those elements are glowing white hot, heating the furnace to 2,000 degrees roughly. Yeah, I don't have much room, Roberts. That's the thing. I got a total of like 6 inches high, of which I've already got 5 filled with crucibles, so I can't go very, very much. Yeah, Gaming, the bottom is unglazed, but the other side isn't. I need unglazed both sides. Yeah, Gaming, with a grid-like pattern, something like that would be fine. Yeah, we're melting gold. We're processing the resin, smelting the gold, doing cupelling, stuff like that. Anytime you get a spill, it tends to literally just eat through the bottom of the kiln. I had a cupel with some lead in it. I was just trying to move it, and I bumped it, and it just splashed on the bottom again and just put holes right in the bottom. Now, they do make this interesting stuff in adapt tubes that you can just repair damage like that. It's pretty hilarious. Yeah. It seemed to work pretty well. But as I'd like to have just a replaceable thing, and especially if you had like a little spill on it, you could just take it and put it on the belt sander and put it back. Right. On my crucibles, because you tend to get a little drip right at the edge. Before I reuse them, I like to get rid of that drip. I'll grind it off so it doesn't run down the side of the crucible and cause problems. Yeah. Pitthermal.com. Okay, let's see.
PTI thermal, I think it says.
Okay, let me see. Here it comes, and let me save that. Oops, wrong one. This one. Okay, I saved it, Chris. Thank you. Yeah, I know we're well above the temperature to melt glass, Jeff.
That's the problem. It'll turn back into a sticky mess.
Yeah, it'll turn back into glass. Yeah. Yeah, I know, Chris. That's the theory. But as you're also well aware, it only takes a small fraction of a drop to manage to make its way around the outside edge. There's been times where I just haven't been real careful about cleaning off the dust from charge, putting in flux and just not doing that, and it's run down the side.
Yeah.
Oh man. And we've also had 2 crucibles that actually got leaks in them. I had them, I was using scorification dishes, just as a double thing. And one of them, that dish was this full of flux. There was a hole in that crucible. And I mean, it
found
just
its porosity and found its way out.
Found its way out. Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and stuff like that's going to happen.
Yep. So yeah, you want some protection there. No, I haven't done that one yet, Lito. I've seen it on YouTube, but yeah, I haven't done that. We're going to be dropping some hot molten metal in that because Eva really likes it, the looks and stuff. But anyhow, yeah, and so will fluorite. Exactly. The couple of those crucibles we were using where we're putting fluoride in there. Boy, you can feel the sides. There's a lip there
Just
in there now.
Get right into it.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I say it's kind of fun. I enjoy it, but I'd really like to solve that. What do we do with the damned oven dried resins? Because we got about an ounce of gold or more that's currently inaccessible.
Tied up in those dried resins.
Yeah. And we should have an ounce in there, over an ounce. And we're only getting 50% recovery. So that's thoroughly undesirable. Yeah, we use flux. We're trying different things. Okay, John, I'll check that out. So yeah, we use different fluxes depending on what we're trying to do. And we're trying to find out what the optimum flux is to digest the resin and recover the gold from it. Basically, we're trying to oxidize the resin, turn it into carbon dioxide and water at the same time we wind up getting the gold recovered at the bottom. Yeah, it's a Prince Rupert's drop, Lito. That's what it's called. Yeah, gaming wins. I thought so too. I also didn't think that heating resin to 250 degrees in an oven would cause something to happen that would just make it impossible to get the gold out of there. But empirical evidence
suggests otherwise.
Exactly. We're getting over a 50% reduction in the stage 3 resin from dried on the countertop, literally just dried on the countertop, versus wet material put in an oven at 250 degrees and oven dried. You get over a 50% reduction in recovery. On the other hand, if you countertop dry it and then put it into the oven at 400 degrees, you only lose about 40%. Not sure exactly what the mechanism, but yeah. So it's really strange. Okay, I'm going to click on this one here, Chris, and then save it to. Yeah, that looks similar to my Satanite. Oh, I see. You just pour it in there, huh? And leave it sit. Okay. Well, I'll save that.
Affordable even.
It's not too bad. Don't know, Roberts. So I can tell you that the if the gold was lost as opposed to somehow made inert in the resin when I was baking it, the inside of my oven would be pretty gold colored because there would be about a half an ounce of gold lining my oven, which isn't it? Which is, well, the problem with cyanide leaching in Montana, A, it's illegal. I presume you're talking about cyanide leaching the resin. If it was, that just gets us back to stage one again. I could probably use, if it'll leach at all, the Eco Gold X would probably get it, but then I have to put it back into resin and blah, 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 you know? So in the future, we simply just will not oven bake the resin. Yep. Yeah, that's my thought, Chris. I think it's a carbon encapsulation. That's the only thing I can think of in the resin that would do it. But it could be something else the resin is picking up. Some other mineral, is forming some kind of matrix with the carbon. I don't know.
Or copper.
Turning little ceramic beads or something. I don't know. I've already tried Aqua Regia, and that didn't work too well, Gaming Wars. I tried digesting the resin in Aqua Regia and only got 25% recovery. Yeah, she's probably correct, Lars. So anyhow, say we're playing some games. We know how to keep from causing the problem in the future. We're trying to figure out how to correct the problem if we can. That's perplexing, Pat. I'm not exactly sure what the message is. Pat has some interesting communication skills. Sometimes goes right past me. Yeah, it's not critical. It's only $1,000, but you hate to throw away $1,000 if you can avoid it.
A couple $1,000.
Yeah, and we may try that too, Roberts. But again, as my principal told me today, I don't want to spend $2,000 to get $1,000 worth of gold.
Well, yeah, that's the problem. And then you don't want to create an environmental nightmare doing it either.
Yep. So anyhow, so that's our status as of now. I'm thinking it's about time for Eva.
I'm going to the bathroom and then I will be there.
Cool.
Okay. So good. I can get a break because I'm recovering from surgery, and so I'm incapacitated. I feel like I'm about to swoon.
Yeah.
Oh, you're just complaining because you've been partially neutered.
This resin is an ion exchange resin. It's basically similar to what you would find in a water softener. Its job is to suck particular ions out of solution and grab them. And the problem is, now that it's grabbed the gold out of solution, and we've taken basically all the gold in a couple of tons of solution and put it into 1 pound of resin, how do we get it out of the resin is the question. No, I haven't tried the PVC primer yet, Chris. You're having flashbacks. Let's see. I can try that, Chris. And I just wrote it down. That'd be an easy one to test. We've done a few things like powdering it, but none of it's really highly critical since we already found the solution to preventing the problem in the future. So we shall see. 90 grams per liter. Who's the manufacturer, Dickie? LJGE31. Weak anion, huh? Okay, Tricky.
That's
$4 per kilogram. A little more expensive, but not bad.
no, still
Yep.
within the range.
Yep.
DVD. All right, we'll turn it
Look
over
at-
to Eva,
look at
and
this.
when we come back, we'll talk about prospecting a little bit.
The Gaming
Yeah.
Wins asked Chris, methacrylic acid, sulfonated styrene, or dibenzyl benzene? DVB, yeah. I haven't tried, Lito.
Somebody
It
is going
smells
to have to
pretty
sit
bad.
here and read comments while I talk to these people. Well, howdy, howdy. Is everyone enjoying the
New normal.
increasingly interesting and rather fascinating meltdown of our world economic system yet? It's been one heck of a week. Hi, gaming. Howdy. How do? So, let's see. Not all that long ago, Socks up there in Canada showed us that the average human being can't trust banking systems. Now, some of us, Tinfoil Hat Goddess in particular, has not trusted banking systems since Saigon fell, but that's another story. And the shall we say, interesting war tactics of the Malarkey administration regarding Russia have further solidified my distrust of banking systems, because obviously now even oligarchs that haven't set foot in Russia in 20 or 30 years because they just happen to be Russian are finding their shit has been stolen. You know, the little pieces of paper with the dead people on them have gone poof. Well, that's rude and inconvenient, especially when so far they have not been tried. They haven't been found guilty of anything. It's just one of those, presumptive cancellations, kind of like certain payment processors have done to companies and citizens within the United States who also hold viewpoints that they dislike. Well, that is beginning to bleed over into our metals commodities market. You may have noticed this past week that the London Metals Exchange decided to precipitously halt the trading of nickel when nickel went vertical and in the space of 18 minutes went into a short squeeze. We'll get onto that. And went past $100,000 a ton. At which time the LME said, well, since the metal is no longer reflecting the fundamentals of the actual physical product, we're stopping trading. And we're canceling 8 hours worth of trades retroactively. Fascinating that. Now, what I find really fascinating about this is so far it looks like nickel is going to start trading again on Wednesday. Now, mind you, they originally said it was going to start trading again today. And then they said it was going to start trading again tomorrow. Now they're saying it's going to start trading again Wednesday. And to ensure that all metals stay closely tied to their fundamental values, the London Metal Exchange, in their infinite wisdom, is going to make sure that no metal goes up more than 15%. Now, this is interesting because as of today, let's go see what the U.S. debt clock says about paper to silver and paper to gold. At the moment, the paper to silver ratio is 371.06 to 1. The gold to paper ratio is 110.31 to 1. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, ladies and gentlemen. But it seems to me that 300 and some odd to 1, when it was 165 to 1 about a month ago, is pretty much a fundamental disconnect between the actual values of the metal and what's going on with the paper. This is interesting because apparently they have to stop nickel from trading over $100,000 a ton, which I can perfectly well see because there was some shenanigans going on there. But at the same time, they see nothing wrong with blatantly manipulating the paper amount of silver versus the actual amount of silver, when silver is also a critical industrial metal like nickel, in some ways more critical, to ensure that silver hovers around $25 to $30 an ounce, 25.06 closing today. And gold went up over 2,000 for a little bit and is now down to 1956 again. Very, very interesting this is. Now, as to that silver squeeze, what happened there was apparently there was an oligarch type, industrial type person in China. Wow. Why am I totally not surprised that China was involved in this somewhere? That had gotten a whole bunch of money from J.P. Morgan, of all people. I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you, I am just... My gabber is flaccid here, okay? I mean, I am totally shocked. J.P. Morgan involved in blatant market shorting and manipulation. So the price goes through the roof, and now the people who lost out are complaining like crazy because they willingly bought into these contracts. It's not like they were hoodwinked here, okay? These were accepted trades between two parties. Now, it's one thing if somebody pushes the button on a trade and then says, oh man, my fat fingers, I messed up. And they immediately call LME and they say, oh, my fat fingers, I messed up. Can we cancel this one trade? LME will say, well, sure, fat fingers happen. But we had a whole trainload of people that decided to get in on what looked like the nickel rally of the century. And then LME steps in, shuts everything down, changes the rules in the middle of the game, and retroactively makes all those contracts go poof. So the same people that were looking at big profits are now looking at huge losses. And to ensure that the big boys don't lose a whole lot day over day, LME continued to change the rules and is now saying they're not going to allow more than 15% movement. Well, now, if you want to, how do you say, let's see. How do you say, I'm going to fix the price on something without actually fixing the price on something? Yeah. So we now know we can't trust banks as if we ever could trust banks. And of course, we can't trust the Federal Reserve, who, by the way, is, in a little hot water themselves right now. And apparently we can't trust the metals commodities exchanges either. Ooh. Wow. I wonder what all these guys have in common. Maybe it has something to do with little pieces of paper with dead people on them. Or some little pieces of paper with living people on them, like a certain very old queen. But at any rate, in the middle of all this, the United States Mint today announced that they are going to be suspending the minting of 2022 peace dollars and Morgans, modern Morgans and modern peace dollars, because they're having trouble getting the blanks to make them. Oh, that's a rather interesting thing to hear from a mint. And apparently, the mint in Perth is having a little trouble getting blanks to produce things as well. One has to wonder how you can run a mint without having these kind of things around. But I shouldn't be too surprised, since banks at the moment also aren't keeping things around. More and more, we are seeing more of those nice little signs around town that say, due to a severe coin shortage, can we round up or round down, or can you give us exact change? Well, our local businesses and people here and there and everywhere on Reddit are reporting that when they go in to buy $100 worth of coins for their business or to get bills for change, those things seem to be missing. So apparently, you can't even get fiat money at a bank. And it's really odd that you can't get change here in little old Helena, Montana, because guess what? We have a Federal Reserve branch right in town. But apparently, our banks are finding that you have to call an order, of course. I mean, that's acceptable. You have to call an order your coins so that your coins and your bills can be delivered. But they're discovering that the Federal Reserve is getting a little shirty about actually giving them the coins and bills that they're trying to order. Now, we already know that banks no longer have to keep any cash in reserve to pay anybody. This is how you guarantee you're not going to have a bank run. You make sure there's nothing there to give anybody, correct? Now it turns out the Federal Reserve is apparently doing the same thing, and one has to wonder how much of our money is actually just ones and zeros. Speaking of ones and zeros, you may have noticed that Lord Malarkey has put out his executive order from the Albino McMansion concerning a digital currency, a central bank digital currency run by our dearly beloved federal government. Yeah. This coin shortage and bill shortage is beginning to look more and more convenient. Now, if it weren't the federal government here, I would suspect they were doing what I would do if I wanted to make actual physical money go away. If I wanted to make actual physical money go away when it showed up in my bank, I would simply shred it or burn it, and I wouldn't produce any more of it. And then I would just tell people, well, you don't have a choice. This takes care of both sides of the problem at the same time. All the money's already been spent in the system and disappears once it is spent. And then they say, okay, we're revaluing the currency, and here's your nice new card with your nice little QR code on it. Of course, our federal government is not nearly that efficient or that logical, thank God. If they were, we wouldn't be in this mess. So I doubt they'll do anything that good. What I think is going to happen with this digital currency, on the other hand, is they're going to visit this nightmare upon the people who cannot escape. People like Lefty back here, who get all their money from Social Security. People like the people on food stamps and TANF and the military, the people who are required by law to have a bank account. This is going to be the beta test group for this FedCoin crap when they finally roll it out. One of these fine days, I expect they will tell us all, congratulations, welcome to the brave new world. Here's your QR code. You will never see real money again. Now, fiat isn't even real money, okay? But they're going to visit this on the military and the seniors and the people who must have a bank account before everybody else. And then once they roll it out, the cards are not going to work properly. The system's going to be terminally fucked up. And the website is going to be non-functional. And the app they make you put on your phone is probably going to crash and be hacked the first day. So that's
like
what
Obamacare?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Even
Okay.
worse, since it involves money
Yeah.
or what passes for money
It
these
won't
days.
work.
But that is what we're looking at here. They're never going to be able to do a successful digital currency, at least not successful for real people. It will be very, very successful for them.
It'll be short.
And that is what worries me. But anyway, so we now know we can't trust banks. We now know we can't trust the London Metals Exchange. COMEX is looking a little shady these days, too. You got to wonder what's going on with those people. And in the local coin shop, the selection was getting a little bit thin, though they did have a beautiful 1,000-ounce bar that would have made a great paperweight if I could have afforded it. The premiums have gone up almost 10% since last week on various websites out and about, like Money Metals, JM Bullion, etc. Many of them are offering $1 to $3 over spot to buy back your silver from you. Many of them are also showing a whole lot of stuff sold out, a very, very thin selection, and seriously delayed delivery times. And on the matter of delivery, people, I really suggest you go to your local coin shop, because the number of people who are reporting stolen packages, porch pirates, and delivery people making off with the precious metals that come in the mail is rising dramatically. Another thing that is rising dramatically, just so you know, if you've got a locking gas cap on your car, that does not necessarily guarantee you will not have a problem, because thieves are now drilling holes in the gas tank so that they don't have to siphon, since the local poison control people everywhere are now putting out nice friendly bulletins explaining to people, when you siphon gas, be careful not to get it in your mouth because it can poison you. Yeah, they're now drilling holes in gas tanks so they can just drain your gas right into a 5-gallon bucket or into a gas can and take off with it. Just so you know. Something to consider there. I'm not sure exactly how a person would would combat this, since it's a little hard to install drill proof.
Works.
Well, that doesn't help with them not drilling holes in your gas tank.
Depends on how soon you deliver the rock salt.
But that's just another thing. And another interesting theft and crime related news. Would you believe that Amazon, I believe it was, or it might have been Apple. Well, anyway, it was one of those technocratic bullshit companies that begins with an A, has decided to shut down their offices in Seattle. They're moving their people out of the offices in Seattle and allowing them to work remotely because of the tremendous surge in crime and fentanyl-related overdoses. Yeah. Interesting little thing that is. Of course, we all know that no sane, reasonable person would be living in Seattle at this point anyway. But it's interesting that they're not saying to the city, we're going to move the whole company out, lock, stock, and barrel, and you will lose our tax dollars if you don't fix this disgusting mess. Because, yes, Seattle has turned into a cesspit. Well, what else would one expect? Leftist cities. We all know how that goes. But it has been a very, very interesting week with the metal thing, and I'm going to read one little piece about that, because I think it's rather well written. The 18 minutes of trading chaos that broke the nickel market. Yep. Going through it, they don't say anything that we don't already know. However, it is unprecedented and ridiculous. Hi, Alice. Alice, hi. Oh, hello, Alice. So let's see what else is going on in the news here. We already know the Ukraine crisis is rocking the London Metal Exchange. All kinds of things regarding that are rocking the London Metals Exchange. The war in Ukraine has engulfed the 145-year-old London Metal Exchange, which sits at the epicenter of the global trade in industrial metals. What Russia terms its special operation has broken the LME nickel contract and forced the exchange to impose emergency measures across the rest of its core-based metal contracts. Anybody want to take a bet on how long these emergency measures last? I mean, the ones Nixon implemented in 1971 are still in effect. Just saying. And most of our COVID emergency measures are still in effect, and we'll get to COVID in a minute, people. This is a tale of two crises. Oh, wow. Random decent turn of phrase here. The first is the threat to supply from Russia, a major producer of aluminum, copper, and, of course, nickel. Even absent explicit sanctions, Russian metal exports must now navigate tightening financial, logistical, and trading restrictions as ever more companies drop their Russian ties. Industrial metals were already in bull mode. War in Ukraine has poured oil on simmering markets, particularly nickel, where the price explosion blew apart the huge short positions held by China's Xinjiang Group, which then triggered the second crisis. Nickel rose by 61% to $48,078 per ton on Monday, March 7th, generating massive calls on cash to meet margin calls and threatening what the LME termed a systemic risk to the market. Well, maybe if they didn't allow everybody and their uncle to buy margin calls and short things that they don't own, we might not have this kind of problem going on. But, just saying. With potential multiple defaults among LME brokers. Yeah. Sounds a lot like our stock market in like 1929. Nickel was suspended the following Tuesday and remains so at the time of writing. Every other LME traded metal has been caught up in the storm, the ripple effect determined by each market's exposure to both Russian supply and LME margin shocks. Metals trading last week was all about margin and pain, LME broker Merrick Spectrum said in a note to clients. The LME's core contracts are not cash-settled futures, but forwards, with positions financed by credit lines secured against collateral. Nickel's blowout required huge increases in margin collateral, not just from Xinjiang, but from every other short position holder. This set off a domino effect as positions in other markets were liquidated to raise urgently needed funds. As nickel went supernova on Tuesday before the LME pulled the plug at 08:15 London time, so did both zinc and lead. Zinc shot up to a record high 4,896 per ton and led to a 10-year high of 2,700 per ton in the early hours of trading. By the end of the day, both were pretty much back where they started, suggesting the spike was down to a sudden forced exit of short positions. Aluminum moved in the opposite direction, 3-month metal dropping from Monday's high of $4,073.50 to $3,498 at Tuesday's close. Tin was similarly hit on Wednesday, the long bull-running trend rudely interrupted as the soldering metal slumped from $49,500 to a low of $39,080 per ton. Copper was the least affected, quite possibly because of its recent range-bound trading pattern has left it bereft of speculative positioning, either bullish or bearish. The red-headed stepchild of metals, and arguably one of the most critical. Go figure. The price behavior of the others suggests profitable positions were liquidated to bail out nickel losses, short positions in zinc and lead contracts, long positions in aluminum and tin markets. The LME has imposed backwardation limits on its core contracts and looks set to introduce price bands as well. Yeah, we're back to that whole price fixing thing going on here. When you openly rig a market and you try to tell people you're not rigging a market or it's for their own good. We have some government information on that too. All 6 are physically deliverable and to varying degrees vulnerable in a potential suspension of Russian exports amidst escalating power prices in Europe. It was fear about disruption to Russian nickel supply that first started the price moving up towards and ultimately through the big short. Norilsk nickel hasn't been sanctioned, but it's a significant supplier of refined nickel to the European market, accounting for around an estimated 63% of consumption in 2020, according to analysts at Natixis. Russian metal sanctions versus weaponization is an article you'll want to look up on that issue. The company is also a strategically significant global supplier of palladium, which is why the palladium price turned wild last week, hitting an all-time high of $3,441 per ounce. Russian copper is less important for Western markets, accounting for just 4.4% of European consumption, according to Natixis. This helps explain the relative calm in copper pricing over the past couple of weeks. Aluminum has its own supply concerns in the form of UC Rusal's 4 million tons of annual production. The company and its owner, Oleg Deripaska, were briefly sanctioned in 2018. Deripaska has been sanctioned anew, although his reduced role in Rusal, a condition for his original measures being lifted, may provide some protection for the company. Self-sanctioning, however, is already kicking in, with Rio Tinto, a partner with Rusal at the bauxite and alumina stage of the supply chain, promising to sever all ties really now. It remains to be seen what this means for potentially sanctioned stranded assets such as Aughinish Alumina Refinery in Ireland, owned by Rusal but supplied by Rio Tinto. Oh, really now? The LME aluminum price is currently trading around $33.80, which suggests a relatively sanguine view about an imminent global shortage. U.S. and European physical premiums, however, are punching out fresh all-time highs on a regular basis, indicating acute supply concerns in both regions. Any interruption to Russian metal exports couldn't come at a worse time for many metal users, particularly those in Europe. Aluminum and zinc production in the region was already being reduced in response to high power prices, which have surged even further on the back of the Ukraine crisis. For now, metals are in the grip of a supply crunch, as unexpected as was Russia's special operation in Ukraine. This may well turn into a demand crunch if continued hostilities translate into recession. That is for the future, however. Oh, really? The more immediate concern for all metals traders is whether the LME can fix its broken metal contract. Well, actually, I would say the more immediate concern for all metals traders is why you're going to trust somebody who changes the rules in the middle of the game and breaches and busts a whole bunch of contracts to benefit a few little people. That's the more sanguine question here, and that is the more operative question. Do you really want to trust a dirty dealer? Hello? Common sense calling here.
Time to play on another table.
Exactly.
Greed over reality.
Until it does, metal price risk remains subordinate to systemic market risk. Now, speaking of various crunches, Pandaland is doing odd stuff again. Very coincidentally, right around the time that they are denying that they were planning to help Mod Vlad over there in Russia, and right around the time that they've been doing everything they can to avoid talking to Lord Malarkey, along with most of India, most of the Middle East, and everybody else that has half a brain, China is locking down again. As a matter of fact, they're instituting lockdowns starting this week in 3 or 4 of their major port cities, like Shanghai. So all of a sudden, the whole port and supply chain situation is going to be really seriously foobar again. And already forecasts are already out of sight and to the moon cargo costs could as much as double or triple if this lockdown continues to go on. So there's going to be all kinds of crunches this year. We're going to have a crunch in fertilizer because the United States imports. We import 85% of our chemical fertilizer and feedstock. And guess what? All the people we import it from are keeping it this year. We're not going to be getting much. We import a whole lot of seed too, by the way. And a whole lot of that we ain't going to be getting. And there's no point in planting some seed, like certain types of corn, when you haven't got the fertilizer to grow it in the first place. But beyond that, another interesting problem showed up this week, thanks to Mad Vlad and the Ukrainian kerfluffle going on here. Apparently, one of the world's largest producers of sodium cyanide, the stuff we all use for silver and gold leaching, is going to be curtailing production, and they're going to be curtailing a lot of export because of drastic increases in energy costs, amongst other things. So we now have a sodium cyanide crisis, which is really, really going to impact our miners. Our miners are already facing about 20% across the board increase in base costs this year, thanks to diesel costs and inability to get parts and inability to get other things. And then there's Lord Malarkey slow walking or completely ignoring every permit that is out there. And well, now we got this a cyanide issue to deal with. So things are going to get a little bit ridiculous here. And yeah, Tricky, well, foobar is the best word I could come up with, you know. And yeah, Roberts, I saw that there's gun control stuff in that new $1.5 trillion funny money budget that got passed. But no worries. Madam Pelosi told us today that inflation is 100% on Mod Vlad. That government spending has nothing to do with inflation. Quite the opposite. All of the government spending going on right now is actually decreasing our deficits. It is anti-inflationary. Oh, all hail, Madam Doublespeak, Queen Pelosi. I was surprised she was sober enough to get that sentence out in one piece and keep a straight face. But with all the plastic surgeries she's had, she probably couldn't do much else but keep a straight face. I mean, she probably has gotten enough Botox to kill several 100,000 people. Okay. I mean, let's face it here. Yeah, Roberts, the DC Trucker Convoy is still kind of sort of going on. None of us ever hear about it, but then again, it's one of those things that's hidden under the COVID of darkness, as Tricky Dicky called it. The hundreds of shipping containers on the port of LA, they're still there. As a matter of fact, the piles are getting bigger every week. It is truly amazing. Some of the ports actually got permission to stock things higher than they were. So the most recent pictures I've seen are freaking surreal. It looks like something out of Fallout 4 over there in those ports. Don't know what's going on with that because, of course, it's under the total incomplete news blackout, the COVID of darkness here. I like that term. Thank you, Tricky. But yeah, you see, according to Lord Malarkey, all of this is Mod Vlad's fault. Okay, it's Putinflation. It's not Bidenflation. It's Putinflation. It's all Mod Vlad's fault, even though it started last January. That's just, a thing. And yes, they did pass a $1.5 trillion bill that has $1.49 trillion worth of pork in it and $0.1 trillion that might actually do some good somewhere. Oh, and it has a 21% raise for Congress. So they are officially the only people in the country that probably got a raise that is keeping pace with the inflation that the federal government says is 7.9%, but is actually closer to about 16%. So yeah, that's how last week went in Washington. Oh, and in case you missed it, under the total blackout, and I mean so total that it's ridiculous, there was a UN Security Council meeting the other day. At the UN Security Council meeting, the Russian ambassador gave a very long speech. The Russian ambassador was discussing certain types of food safety laboratories, to use the politically correct Washington term for them, research facilities in Ukraine. There's apparently 30. They apparently are working with some really, really, really nasty things, including a bird flu that has a 50% mortality rate. And in a totally shocking and absolutely unsurprising development, they were indeed funded by the United States government, which should not surprise anybody because we all know that our government does all kinds of things in foreign countries that they can't get away with doing in the United States. Places like Wuhan, and apparently places like Ukraine. But even though this was an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council in the middle of a world war, or what is purporting to be a world war, or at least a regional war that is looking like it's going to heat up. It was completely poof. It was memory hold. It was memory hold to the extent that Orwell would be jaw drop in shock and awe. Okay, we're talking serious memory hole here. It was nowhere. It was nowhere because it's really, really bad stuff, and you really, really want to look it up on Rumble because you ain't going to find it on YouTube. You'll find a lot of stuff on Rumble this week that's quite interesting if you go digging for it. But you didn't hear that from me. I mean, after all, we all know that YouTube doesn't censor anything, ever. And everything is going swimmingly well. Oh, and apparently Iraq threw some missiles at a U.S. at Iran. Well, somebody, one of the eyes, threw some missiles at a U.S. consulate in Iraq. Okay, so Iran threw some missiles. Yeah, Iran threw some missiles at our embassy in Iraq, and they said that they weren't throwing missiles at our embassy in Iraq. They were throwing missiles at a secret Zionist military installation in Iraq. I'm not even going to figure out how anybody could think that anyone with half a brain would believe that excuse, since the odds of Iraq allowing any Zionist military operation within their borders, secret or otherwise, is like somewhere between 0 and you've got to be fucking kidding me. I don't think so. But anyway, they went and bombed our embassy, and so far we haven't heard anything else. And apparently India accidentally lobbed a missile into Pakistan, and they promptly apologized for it and said, oh, our bad, we're not quite sure how this happened. And Pakistan said, oh, no problem. So, yeah. It's been an interesting week. If you have not filled your gas tank, I really suggest you do so and look for a way to keep people from poking holes in it. If you are not stocking food, you really, really want to consider doing so, especially if you like pretzels, since there still apparently is a serious pretzel shortage. No idea why that is. If you are looking for canning jars, you better start finding them now because they've gone up in price again. I paid $19.99 a case for ball jars this week. Currently, the pure jars are going for $17.99 where I am. You can't find anything under $15.99. Good luck finding lids and ring sets. Good luck finding a lot of cat foods. Good luck finding a lot of dog foods. Good luck finding cat litter. And by the way, the number of sheets on your toilet paper roll has gone down again with 4 different companies. So start reading your packages more carefully. And Lefty back there, the half-nutted wonder, has decreed that if any serious breaking news happens between Mondays, we will be having random tinfoil hat reports. Just so you know. You can studiously ignore them if you wish. But bye.
Oh. By the way, the missile from India into Pakistan, I don't know who their maintenance people are, but apparently during routine maintenance operations, it accidentally got fired. So I think somebody really needs to review their lockout procedures so they don't, again, send supersonic missiles through the airliner altitude. It's about 40,000 feet for a couple hundred miles. Luckily, nobody got injured. But yeah, that was quite the oopsie there. But even Pakistan is saying it wasn't armed or anything. It
just went off.
They did file a sternly worded letter of protest. But yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, shit happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can just imagine the look on the guy's face. Oh, shit.
Oh shit. Yeah. Oh shit.
Oh no, I pushed the wrong button. I was just trying to fix
Dust it. You were dusting it.
No, I was trying to fix the operating system. That's my job. But
Whoops.
anyhow, yeah, and
He was on the phone to Microsoft tech support.
Yeah.
which is my friend Punjab. But anyhow, and the View opined that perhaps it would be appropriate to have the Department of Justice investigate Tucker Carlson and Tulsi Gabbard because they disagree with the official narrative in Ukraine and therefore should perhaps be thrown in jail as traitors.
Yeah.
So just letting you know,
Well,
opinions
Mitten
can be
said-
dangerous now.
Mitten said that Tulsi was a traitor.
Ooh, good one, Goldstream.
Yeah.
I mean, Mitten said that Tulsi was a traitor.
Yep.
We believe Mittens, don't we?
So anyhow, it looks like
Later.
somebody has brought some other stuff here.
Well, just things to add in.
So
I figured if we didn't have any more questions, we'll come up with some.
I'll keep an eye on the comments here.
Well, you can jump in here too, Keith.
Oh,
'cause
I
this
will.
really pertains to, everything we're doing as miners, but I thought I would take it from the perspective. A lot of people are always asking me, well, what do I do? And I've kind of become a professional prospector over the years as much as a miner because I started to look at a lot bigger projects and kind of expand what I'm doing. And they're like, well, how do you go about getting, maybe you own a claim and you want to bring somebody in or maybe get somebody to lease it or a big mining company preferably to lease it. How do you go about that? So I thought I would kind of touch on it a little bit of the phases and the steps you have to kind of go through to get to a point that the property or properties would be of interest for a mining company to send their geologists out or geophysicists and say, hey, yeah, there's something here that we need to look at this a little more. We would be willing to lease this from you or put in some money into the project to buy our way in. And this is how you make money going to a bigger a junior mining company maybe, or a bigger exploration company. It always starts with the normal prospecting, just like we talk about all the time, look at historical data reference, go in, possibly test holes or sampling of some sort, assays to make sure you've actually got something to start tracking. If you can, ideally, find strike. If you can follow strike on a hard rock over into placer or vice versa, starting with placer and leading to hard rock. If you can understand the mineralization of the area, then you can kind of get to the point of phase 2, which is claiming up, leasing, doing deals with other claim holders to tie up ground so that you can put a big enough package together that a bigger mining company would be interested in the project, because they'll come in and lease 1 or 2 mining claims, but a lot of times they want everything that could possibly refer back or be within the range of better mineralization that gives them more exploration possibilities, possibly moving drill holes out farther. So ideally they like a bigger package when they start to really look at putting money into a project, even if it's a buffer zone of claims around the outside. Next, in some cases, that can be 40 claims that they want a buffer zone where nobody can get close to them. These are all things that you, just as a single person, can do, is get to the point of assembling properties that all have to do with that mineralization. Step 3, some of that you can still be very much involved in, the documenting, assaying, soil sampling, working on the exploration license to go to a bigger project, But it kind of step 3 kind of gets you to the point where you really need to bring in a geologist and get kind of an outside view of what you're looking at, and have a little bit of feedback as to, what's the next best way to take this project. So there may be a little bit of cost involved at that point. Like here in Montana, the exploration license is no big issue, really, short of actually when you go to the full program of what you're going to try to do as far as taking it to the next level, which would be taking it basically to what I call level 4 in my thing, is further exploration. It may be bringing in geophysical testing equipment, magnetics testing, things like that. Bigger sampling situations, which could be drilling, trenching, potholing with the excavators or things like that, where now you're at a point where it's going to start costing, you're going to be putting money into the project. And at this point, sometimes you can get an exploration company to come in and help with funding if they can do a contract that could possibly lead to a bigger mining contract or something. But you're going to need reports on the testing, the drilling, the sampling, proof of mineralogy, and you want those really to be a third-party issue. And they have to be if you're going to take it to level 5, where you're going to go to a 43101, a national instrument. Because as far as disclosure for raising money, you have to have that. And a lot of mining companies don't even want to look at your property unless there is already at this point a 43101. So if you own your own mining claim and you'd like to sell it off to a mining company or move it into a bigger project, it really takes spending some money to get to this point that now that property has some actual physical value, because there's a third party standard here that really is the technical reports, the geophysicist reports, the geologic reports. Engineer can be in there on site and write some things about the engine, how the engineer sees the project. And those are all accredited positions of people that really, really add value to this property that you're building on.
Now, the thing that you haven't mentioned, but which kind of implied, each one of these steps is dependent on the step before doing well.
Well, yes, yeah. If you're not, you're doing test holes and assays and mapping and not finding values that would be somewhere profitable in the range of mineable, profitable, well, then you're not getting there. Then it's on to looking at some other mining properties.
Yep.
And it's possible that this could show well. And if you try to go to a bigger area and start going outside of a small anomaly, it may, at this point, may mean, no, it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of mining companies that if this project isn't big enough, they're not interested, because they need X amount of million of ounces or whatever to make it profitable to bring in the big money and establish a mine.
Every mining company will have its own niche that it's looking to service.
Right.
The size of a project it wants. If you've got like a Phelps Dodge or a Freeport McMoran,
they want big projects.
They don't care about, $5 billion. That's not big enough for them. If you're looking at a mid-sized Canadian company or something, they're very, very happy to look at something $500 million.
There's junior miners that may even come in and mine something on a smaller scale than that. If they can see it's profitable and they can do it in 2 years or something, a smaller company may still come in and make you some money.
Yeah, exactly.
But you need to find exactly what you're saying. Each company's got a niche in the market of what they do and at what level. And that does play into, somebody being interested in what you already know at this point.
Exactly. It's like,
because this isn't the end all be all of it. And most of the time, if these each get better as they go along, especially when they get into the testing, if the testing keeps going forward, looking better and better and better, the project becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and it may take longer to get to the point of the actual mining, but the values that are increased in that are huge.
Yeah, it's like a car. If you're trying to sell a car, you got to look at who's likely to want to buy that car.
Exactly.
If you're trying to sell a Lamborghini, you don't advertise it, in the local newspaper.
Right.
And this thing too, depending on the size project you come up with, will determine who you try and market it to.
Who you need to go to.
Yep. Bre-X, huh? Oh yeah. That was quite the fiasco.
I think actually the 43101's been around longer than that, because I've read some fairly old ones. I think it was before Bre-X, but Australia also has their own standard. I can't even tell you what that is off the top of my head, but it's very similar to the 43101, but Australia uses a different one. And the Asian countries have a similar standard that's in the Asian Pacific mining system. So there's a couple different ones, but they all very much have similarities. And you can go in and read 43101s on different mining companies or different projects. And some of them, you can tell that, as we've talked about before, they kind of hybridize the thing to the point of trying to sell it versus just trying to show what's there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start running into the ones where they're really trying to convince you to be an investor,
it's a great car here.
It's a good time sometimes to reevaluate that as an investment, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. They make this report really out to be way more than it needs to be. It could, most of the time, this could be fairly simple, probably in 8 pages of paper.
I've seen that.
Here's what we're finding. Here's where we drilled. Here's our mapping. Here's the information. Here's our geologic reports.
And they stretch it to 300 pages.
Right, because they put in a whole bunch of worthless historical data that is kind of inferred in a way, but some of it has nothing to do with the property that you're talking about right here. It might be the property over on the other side of the mountain. And those things you have to really start to understand to be an investor in the mining.
Yeah, the worst one I saw was that mine in Guinea that a guy wanted me to look at the stuff. It went back to almost Egyptian time. It was like 600 AD.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm sorry, the such and such empire in 600 AD has very little to do with this particular property.
Exactly, Chris. And this is not meant as a prospectus. This is meant as an evaluation of the project. Because this may be more than one mine. This could be a whole group of mines that you've put together or something like that.
Thank you, Shiny. It can be, Chris, but I say there's a certain amount of too much icing, not enough cake.
Speaking of which, we need to look up Highcroft mining reports this week, Bear.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you guys have any questions, I'd always be free to answer them. But a lot when they ask me about what I kind of do, this is what I do. I go out and try to put properties together that could be marketable. And now, as I've done it over the years, I've ran into a lot more mining companies that know who I am, and it's opened some doors that if I find something as I'm prospecting and out playing around, I have a potential chance of either being paid by them or getting a piece of the deal.
Well, and
getting into a position that I got some unearned income maybe.
Well, another thing in this business that's really important is reputation.
That too.
Because there's so many people out there with so much stuff that an exploration person is just inundated with raw data. But if you got someone who consistently brings you good projects, has gathered enough data to get it to the point where you can say, okay, this has some real potential. It saves you a lot of time and hassle, and it makes you look good for your bosses too.
And this last one that I put together here was, something that was pretty new to me. I mean, I did not understand all of the steps necessarily. And I put in a lot more years to put the project together than should have taken. But I've learned a lot as I've done it. And these guys have come back to me and said, as the exploration group, the geologists and geophysicists, with the knowledge that you've got on the ground here, we want you on this team partly because you can answer quick questions, as well as you just saved us 3 years worth of time.
Mhm.
We got money, but we didn't want to spend 3 years wandering around to put this together. You just, you're worth everything that we need to pay you.
Yeah.
And suddenly it went from not making anything, just like as a prospector, you can go out and find a half a gram of gold, but it doesn't pay your gas in the truck, or suddenly it's serious.
Yeah.
So it's been it's an interesting business to say the least.
Mhm.
And I absolutely love it because that's the part I like to do.
Uh-huh.
Hunt. I like the hunt.
Yep.
And I like some of the historical, but I really like the hunt.
Well,
Go find it. Go put it together.
and this is another thing, and this is about life in general. Find out what really lights that fire in your belly,
And that's
and then
what you
figure
should,
out how to do that for a living. And you'll be good at it if you're
because you want to be.
reasonably intelligent and disciplined.
Right.
Because you want to succeed, and if you're disciplined and smart enough to be able to figure out how to make it work, that is going to make you so much better than the average Joe Schmuck that's just doing it for a paycheck. It's not funny. And my job, what I like to do is I like to solve the puzzles of how do I make this thing profitable,
Right.
and we have a different
And
personality that way. We work together.
That's your background. See,
Yeah.
and my background was, finding gravel pits and all kinds of things. So it's very
Yep.
similar.
Yep. Absolutely. And the thing is, find out what you do well and then get good at doing it.
Yeah.
And that works well. Say, like, you and I could work well together as a team where you're the lead man. You go out there, you find it. Then I come in and try and figure out how to exploit it and things like that.
And that's,
You guys still
but-
haven't found one for me.
well, we're working on some things. I got some stuff that I definitely want, Keith to help me with some testing and some things, because I mean, this is a situation where bringing a few people in isn't a bad thing, because if this scores, if you really score, there's enough money in it for everybody who is involved in it.
Sure.
And it's pretty neat when it starts to come together. And not every property is gonna work. But
most properties will not.
No, in a lot of cases they won't. But you may never take this past your own claim and possibly leasing that claim out to another actual miner to make you money while you're doing the other things you like to do. And that's something that even if you've got a claim you're working on the weekends as a hobby, if you were to find another claim that you could lease out, that leased claim may give you enough money that your
Sure.
hobby isn't necessarily a hobby anymore.
Well, and a lot of times too, let's suppose he had a placer miner.
Yep.
And he found a good hard rock deposit on his claim.
Yep,
So he leases that to somebody,
exactly.
and then he can sit there and learn from that guy how to do hard rock. So
Yep.
the next time he finds a hard rock deposit, he can do it himself if he wishes.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
the way you build up
it
expertise.
really is one thing leading to another. And that's kind of why I brought it up, because, constantly somebody's asking me, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well,
I go out in the middle of nowhere and have fun.
I really don't stand around on the street and tell people what I do.
Oh, you're not on the street?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
But like here, if I can bring this up, there's, ways of figuring something out for yourself as far as possibly leasing a claim, or taking it to a level that you've got a saleable, and some of this may be leased claims that you've worked out the leases on to put into the project that ties up this big, that maybe a whole drainage or maybe a whole mountain.
Yeah.
And at that point, once you've assembled the properties and made the deals, now you've got value in the project.
Well, I can tell y'all what you do. You are a critical materials consultant and investigative person.
Somewhat, yeah. Really, that is a better, it answers it better than just saying a prospector. But
You're a critical
Mohammed,
materials consultant.
okay, Mohammed, that it all depends. If you're talking about how long can you hold a claim from the federal government, where you own the mineral rights from the federal government, it's basically indefinite unless they contest it for some reason and you can't prove value. You can keep it decades before it, you either drop it or sell it or exploit it. Now, if you've leased it from somebody else and you're not using the
1872 mining
1872 mining law, if it's not under that, then the lease itself will have the conditions.
Right. In a lot of cases, Mohammed, if we go in and lease a private, let's just say a private placer from somebody who owns it, they own the ground, they own the mineral rights. If we go in and lease it, usually there's a minimum set of conditions on it, how much work we have to do every year to maintain our lease. There may be a financial incentive for the owner in there also, but at a minimum, there's a minimum amount of exploration work that we have to do in order to justify being on their property. The minute we're not doing work or not improving their property, basically the lease could be transcended.
Or
then
just paying them rent.
Well, it could be just rent. I mean, it could be that easy that I'll guarantee you this much a year for the lease of the property, and then any gold
Plus
we get,
percentage
any gold we get, then it's a percentage or whatever. But there, a lot of times there's a minimum work requirement that you got to do X amount of yardage or something every year to continue to at least prove the property's value, even if you never take it to a full-blown mining operation.
And you need to have in that lease agreement that as long as you fulfill your end of the deal, they can't kick you off.
Right. They can't. You're right. And that's a good thing to bring up, actually, because one thing you want in a lease on, somebody else's property or a hard rock mine or something is that if you start to find the values that could turn this into a mine, it's got to be written in a way that they can't say, wait a minute. No, my nephew's going to mine it.
Okay, Ryan.
Yeah, you like that, Ryan? Yeah, we're giving him all kinds of shit.
Shiny, if you've got ore but no equipment, look around the area you're at, prospecting clubs, things like that. You could even put an ad theoretically in the California Mining Journal, but you'd want to get some assays or something to determine exactly how much gold is in it.
Yeah, you're going to have to spend a little bit of money at least for some assays.
Assay for, among other things, you need to know what you've got.
And at that point, Shiny, you might be able to get somebody to finance equipment for you for a percentage of the gold, like for a certain amount of time until the equipment's paid for and they've made a profit. And that's really probably the way to look at it, coming at it from no money or not knowing how to make that next step, is to be able to, first, if you can prove you've actually got something to work with, it shouldn't be that hard to start to put you into contact with some people that maybe can bring in some funding for the equipment and take it to that next level. But they're going to want, a 10% position for a given amount of time, maybe to recover their investment and to make a return on their investment. And it could be dead-ended. Maybe it only lasts for 2 years or 3 years until you have them paid off and everything else.
Mohammed, yes, if it's federal land that you've claimed under the 1872 mining law, it's still open access to everyone else unless you have an active mine and you have a reason
To
to
fence it
exclude
off.
people for safety or something like that, that would be
Correct.
part of your plan of operations if you had an exclusion area. Aside from that, people can actually, they still
Camp.
have the right to come in and put stakes on your claim. Then you just simply have to contest the
Contest it.
validity of them, but you can't prevent them.
No.
Yep.
No, they have full access to your, Forest Service claim or BLM claim, whether it's hunting or fishing or camping or whatever, they have full access. Unless, like he said, there's a safety issue with an operating mine, you can have a buffer zone, and it could be the whole 20-acre claim per se, that they cannot, you can put no trespassing, active mining operation, warning.
It would have to be a reasonable exclusion zone. For
Right.
example, if you were blasting, it would be a lot larger than if you were just digging.
Correct.
That sort of
Yeah,
thing.
like at Montana B, we could do something.
You could. We could, for example, put a fence around the actual operating. Now, this would require a plan of operations before you can do that, though.
Right. Yeah. No, you got to do it right.
And block off the little access road and a few other things. And, say no trespassing and this, that, and the other for whatever good it does in Montana. If you're not there, it's not going to stop too many people.
No, but if they realize there might be a safety issue, or there's noise and it's operating, they're not probably going to go there.
I like bad air.
Yeah.
Put a bad air sign.
I like that sign. That's always a good sign to put on stuff.
Yep. And so anyhow, that's basically kind of the general rules. Whenever you're looking at disturbing a significant surface disturbance, or you're going to affect groundwater or restrict access or anything like that, that becomes, you have to get a permit to do that. Aside from that, people could just wander across, absolutely. And they have no right to interfere with you. For example, if you're up there doing something, they can't stand in the middle of where you're shoveling, and obstruct your use of the land either.
No, they can't interfere. It's kind of like even the hunting rules here, they can't harass you while you're hunting or whatever. Mining is very similar. If they start harassing you, they are
violation of some laws. If it's on federal land, would you call the sheriff or
it's still a civil. It's still a civil action. But yes, you can have them removed if they're going to start protesting you right on your mining site or something. Yeah, they can be removed.
Yeah, you might run into that with environmentalists.
You very much could.
Because
I know
I've rude.
I've been called and had MSHA up there because of somebody who called and said, "Hey, he's up there doing this."
Yep.
So it is a reality.
Yep. Any other questions here?
But I'm hoping that you guys can go out and be successful in your small operation or whatever you're doing. Maybe you can scale up to a little bigger operation, but possibly you can go out and find a mine that's very much investable to bring in the money that it takes to take it to a level that you're making a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
And we've got some guys on here, Jeff Knobloch and a few of the guys that are usually following us week to week on here that are successful miners. They have made a fair amount of money. They've definitely put in the effort over the years to do what they're doing, and it does have a reward.
Yeah, the motivation they have to keep that from happening, Mohammed, is there's a, what is it now, $180 a year
for here,
claim holding fee.
The claim holding fee gets enough that you want to be doing something with
it. It costs some money to maintain it.
And I don't know exactly in Australia what you can do there, Mohammed, but you can go in and look up who owns the claims and call them and talk to them and say, hey, can I work a deal to come in and play on, being your kind of hobbyist yet, go in and play on their ground and they get a, percentage of the gold.
Bryce has got one.
Yeah, actually, Bryce, legally you do. That's the problem. But I mean, they've kind of left the family operations to a certain extent alone, but you are under MSHA. Anytime you bring mechanized equipment on a site, you are under MSHA. Your normal construction or whatever, you're under OSHA. In this case, the minute you bring mechanized equipment on a site, you're under MSHA. If you're digging or lifting or moving material, you're immediately under MSHA. Metal, non-metal, part, I want to say part 36. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. There's 27 and 36, I believe. There's two different ones. And then there's underground, which is a whole nother level of crazy.
Yep.
But, don't be scared, guys, to go call these, a claim owner and say, hey, can I lease that and give you a percentage? I'll give you 15% or 20%. And make a deal with them. If they're not mining it, maybe they'd be open to, you handing them a little bit of gold, even if it's only a gram of gold a year. That's something they weren't getting before, if it's just going to sit there. So don't be scared to call claim owners and try to, find a place that you can be on a, secluded where you're not going to have other guys bothering you.
Yeah, that's actually fairly common. You'll have claim owners that would love to have somebody else to, work it or help
the
them.
thing
One or the
is
other.
they're entitled to anything you learn. So if you learn that over in here we're getting a lot of gold, and when we go over on that side we're not, that map to that claim owner could be very valuable later on, even though you're only in there as a hobbyist. I mean, I've let guys on when I was actually actively mining, if they wanted to metal detect or throw a dredge, throw a little dredge in the pond and see if I'm missing something. Hell, I want to know if I'm missing something. So it's like, yeah, go for it. If you find something, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, Mohammed, in the Western United States, the federal government has put forth a fairly long-term effort to withdraw a lot of land. They've had wilderness areas. They've made regulation more complicated and stuff like that. The basic philosophy of the federal government has changed. In the 50s and 60s, it was multiple use. The idea was, how can the government make money off of government land and provide recreation to the people? And now it's turned to a more preservationist thing, where it's like, well, we don't want people out there. We don't want anyone doing anything.
Gate off the roads and
destroy
off access.
the roads.
Yeah, close off access.
So
we've got
we're
our
fighting
own,
that.
Yeah, we've got our own issues here, definitely. But there is a lot of, chances to go out and do some things if you can approach it right. And it may mean going to somebody that owns a claim or has claims and talking to them and finding out, hey, can I get on and, play over there somewhere for a percentage? I'll give you a percentage of the gold. Or maybe you just say, I'll give you $100 a month. I'm going to be here 2 weekends a month, and I'll kind of like a camping fee, and I'll share any information I find. If I start to find gold, I'll let you know. Yeah, there's no shortage of ground really here in the United States. It's more of trying to get access to the right pieces where you could actually be fairly successful or very successful, and you're going to share part of that success. I don't care what you do in life. You're always, somebody's going to get part of your success. But
Goldstream, essentially. Not in my backyard.
Yeah, that's been a real issue here. But, with what's happening right now with sanctioning Russia and things like, and that, we're going to be in a position in North America here that either we're going to be drilling for oil and working our oil fields, and we're going to go back to mining, or we're going to have a real problem of nothing.
Absolutely.
I mean, in order to go back to even sound money, the investment has to be in something that's real, not insurance policies.
And Goldstream, any news on that First Nations thing in British Columbia? For those of you not aware, the natives in British Columbia have filed sufficient claims that over 100% of the surface area of British Columbia is now claimed by the First Nations. So,
we definitely have some issues that we have to fight against, and we have to we have to educate people as to what's really happening, because a lot of people here are completely clueless to why we're not pumping oil right here in Montana, or for you up there in Goldstream in Alberta or something. Why the heck aren't we doing that? And instead we're going to buy Venezuelan oil. It makes no sense whatsoever.
It does if you want to destroy things. And Mohammed, there's a lot of prospecting clubs and stuff that have multiple claims.
Yeah, they have claims.
And so if you pay the fee, in Tucson, Desert Gold Diggers was $55 a year, and you had access to
20
one or two dozen claims.
Yeah, quite a few in a lot of cases.
And they had information on those claims.
GPAA, we have the
GPAA has hundreds of claims. I think.
Lost Dutchman Group.
Yeah.
What's the other one down in Georgia and South Carolina?
Not
There's
sure.
another group down there
Oh,
that has claims.
They're all over the
There's
place.
some private people that have opened their land up for, hobbyists. So, I mean, there is a lot of opportunity.
Again, Goldstream, it makes perfect sense if you assume that the purpose is not to help us.
Goldstream, I was watching one of the guys I follow from over there the other night, and they had diesel fuel at 50 cents in American money a gallon. If you took the 3.7 liters or whatever it is, I'm not into the metric program, but when they figured it out in American money, it was so cheap. I was just sitting there mesmerized. I mean, actually, their economy is like in a position where we were in the early 1970s, where their cost of living was low enough. They don't have to make a lot of money. And here we are in this inflated nightmare. That's, it's insane.
Roberts, I tend to agree with you. By the way, folks, if the U.S. dollar loses its world reserve status, and it appears to me that Russia, China, and India, all with big gold reserves, may decide, now that we're
complete mineral reserve.
Now that we're
even just the gold.
No, I'm talking about piles of
right,
actual metal.
Oh yeah, real metal in the vault.
Yeah, but if we're like excluding Russia from the banking system, then we're almost forcing them to create a new financial system.
We are that. I think we're already at that point where literally what they've done shot the dollar in the head.
Yeah,
I really do. I think we're at that point where what happens next over the period of, the next year, 2 years, 3 years is going to be a real wake up call to Americans, especially in, North America and Eastern or Western Europe.
Mohammed, the people he goes to are, among other ones, Putin, because by driving the price of oil up, it's a world commodity. So even if Putin can't sell his oil to us, he can sell it to India, and then India buys less oil from Iran or Iraq or whatever.
Somebody else
talking about buying oil at a discount from Putin.
Yeah,
and then we got to buy it from somebody else instead of from Russia, and it just adds the transportation cost of everything.
Mohammed, here we've been seeing our gasoline price go up 10 cents a night
per gallon.
Yeah, per gallon.
Yep.
So that, and one day here it went up 30 cents in one night.
Yeah,
for per gallon.
It went from $3.71 to $3.99 overnight, and the day before it went from $3.34 to $3.71.
Yeah, I mean it's gotten crazy.
Okay, no, Roberts, it's not Putin is the reason. He's the excuse. The reason is because they've used this Ukraine invasion to screw up so much other stuff, supposedly to try and hurt Putin. But they managed to do a much better job of shooting us than Putin.
They're trying to usher in the Great Reset, people.
Yeah, that's was that Roberts that said that too? Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, this has been coming.
This is to get the Great Reset in digital currency.
Yep. Agreed, Goldstream. Agreed, gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I say that's it. It's the people who are getting the shaft are the consumers in like the United States and
States,
Europe and so Europe.
Australia, any Western money countries.
Boy, those guys in
Anybody
Europe have
Western
got to
money-
be scared to death
Oh
because
my God!
all Putin's got to do is turn off the gas.
Yeah,
They are screwed.
Yeah, no energy.
So are we too, because a lot of stuff we get comes from Europe and is
Yeah.
produced with Russian energy.
Yeah, see, we're not machining or doing anything anymore. So if it isn't coming from, like, say, Germany, well, then it's coming from China from the other way. So yeah, we're in a world of problems here.
Mohammed, it's not so much the war. Let's suppose you had a ship captain and he's cruising along and he sees something in front of him that he doesn't like. So he turns left and runs it into the island. That's what's happening. In my opinion, this is not going to get fixed soon, no matter what happens in Ukraine. They could sign a peace deal in Ukraine tomorrow, and it wouldn't make a heck of a lot of difference. The price of oil will come down when, for example, the United States starts producing a lot more oil again and opening up the Keystone Pipeline and stuff like that. But
well, the Canadians don't want to deal with us anymore, and I don't blame them.
No, it's turning into a real nightmare.
I say when you have a delicately balanced, complex system, the one thing you don't want to do is just start taking a sledgehammer to parts of it.
Yeah.
Just take a hammer, open your hood of your car, and take a hammer and start hitting things, and see how long the car runs.
Yeah, see how good that works.
Not very long.
Yeah, it doesn't work out very well.
And then, how much is it going to take in terms of time, resources, and money to fix the car after you've smashed and broken things? It's really, really bad situation here in terms of they're doing just the wrong things. It's not going to fix anything. It's just going to hurt us. Putin's laughing all the way to world domination, basically, because well, the U.S. is going to blow themselves up.
Well, if you go looking on the internet and understand how many minerals and things come out of Russia, you'll understand what kind of a problem we just put ourselves in. I mean, nickel production, 85% of the nickel market comes out of Russia.
Nickel, platinum,
70,
palladium.
I think it's 70% of the aluminum production outside of China comes out of Russia. I mean, we have literally shot ourselves in the frickin' head, and now we're going to pay for it.
You remember that scene in Blazing Saddles where he puts the gun to his own head and says, let him go, or I'm going to shoot him. I'll tell you, I'm going to shoot him.
Yeah. Well,
if you haven't seen that scene, it's pretty hilarious. But yeah,
you can blame anybody you want, but it's our own Western banking system that's brought us to this point.
And the governments.
And our governments.
And big tech.
Well, yeah, tech has played right into
you can't tell the
government.
truth.
Yeah, you can't tell who's attached to who. But
that too.
And a lot of their mineralization over there has never even been developed.
Oh yeah.
It's
a giant Charlie Foxtrot.
Yeah.
Yep. Actually, gaming wins. It was superlative, especially for the time
that it was done.
Yeah, you couldn't make that now.
Oh no.
But if you look at the reality of the movie and the philosophy, there's nothing wrong with it at all. It is poking fun at racists. Absolutely. But it was an amazing creative endeavor.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, we're just, not to, really push that point home, but, look around you and understand this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
In my opinion,
because
I agree.
we're at that point where at the point of our dollar or the Canadian dollar or whatever, Australian dollar being worth nothing, then how are you going to feed yourself? That's the next question.
I don't know. It's going to get interesting. I just bought new batteries for my sight and my flashlight on the shotgun.
That's what I've been doing is and then looking at things I need for mining and prospecting, and I've been buying everything now while I can get it before it goes up in value. Not to say I won't be able to get it, but eventually you're going to pay twice as much as it is today.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to cover all those bases lately.
Mohammed, that's interesting to me. I wonder how much of that is the fact that where you grew up and the culture you grew up in was so much different than America in, what was that, the 1970s
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
such.
Yeah.
Because I think there's probably a lot of what you would call inside jokes there, but all the people I know thought it was just hilarious because it was such a
Well,
parody.
It was a parody on our way of life.
Yep. Kind of like the movie Airplane and things
Yeah.
like that. Yep.
All the black people I knew loved it.
My phone picture has shrunk to the upper corner. Any suggestions? I have no idea, Jeff. Electrons and me do not
Tap on it.
get. Eva says tap on the
On
picture.
the picture. If it's
Tap on the picture like once or twice, and it should come back on.
Ding
full
ding, and it
screen.
should go full screen, she says. I don't
At
know.
least if you got an Android. If you got one of those Apple products, no idea.
Yeah, but the whole De Beers thing was not a diamonds don't have the intrinsic value that De Beers was trying to get. It was more of a, it's a cartel trying to artificially embrace it.
yeah.
Okay, I saw that too. To me, A Million Ways to Die in the West was not nearly as funny as Blazing Saddles, but I thought it was pretty funny.
But that's the difference.
It was also a parody, yeah.
Right. It's a difference of the location, I guess you'd say.
Well, and also
The time frame.
nowadays, when did you see Blazing Saddles, Muhammad? Because again, the culture has changed over time. So what is shocking and offensive now, back then wasn't nearly as shocking and offensive. That's an interesting.
Did it work, Jeff?
He said, "Thank you." The goddess has spoken.
The goddess knows phone.
Yeah.
It happens to me all the time.
Yep. But anyhow, as I say, so that's another interesting, because there's a lot of stuff nowadays where you'll see something that when you first saw it, or even when you do see it, it's like funny but kind of cringy, whereas before it wouldn't have been cringy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, time
When it
period.
came out, huh?
Yeah, well,
Okay,
that's-
interesting. Because
Well,
again,
different background perspective.
well, and different personalities
Well,
too.
yeah.
Exactly.
And some of that, might have went right over your head because you didn't understand the context of what they were mocking.
What I think
You
is
know.
funny is when you see one of those reaction videos where you have a couple of black people watching Blazing Saddles for the first time, and they're just busting a gut.
Yeah.
it's hilarious. Oh, anyhow,
Well, even a lot of that music at the time, you take that old music and play it for the kids, and they're like, "Wow, that's really good."
You want music?
Like, yeah.
Everybody needs to look up Dr. Demento. Look for a song called "The Ballad of Irving."
anyhow, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, bring them up, guys. If we can help you.
And just to review what I started the whole thing with, first of all, I forget who it was, but somebody commented that maybe if I put some kind of something in the rolling bottles, it would give better agitation and stuff. So I have done that to this, and I'll be trying it out, see how it works. I'm currently waiting for some lab results on 2 different resins that we did. I'm doing analysis of the Stutenroth mill on Montana B ore to see what kind of a grind size we need to get optimum recoveries and such. We did the microwave smelting. We're looking at rebuilding the electric furnace. And let's see.
You got the student workings out there to figure out your system there.
Yeah. And we can finish up more resin smelt. We're still trying to figure out how to successfully smelt the oven dried resin that apparently was a big mistake. But I don't think we've lost the gold. We've just encapsulated it or something.
Well, there's really good values there, Mohammed, in what Keith is doing in that mine, but it's finding a way to make sure that you get the recovery of the gold out of the rock.
Well, Mohammed, first of all, the mine itself has enormous potential if you say, well, that's unknown there. What you can see is very good value, and you have no idea how far it goes. So you have potential, but what you're also doing is developing the tools. For example, how valuable is a combination wrench set? Well, pretty valuable if you don't have one. It allows you to do things. So by investigating how we can process and extract this ore at theoretically a profit, it means we can process and extract other ore at a profit. And so we've now created not just a profitable property, but we've created a tool. We have all the milling equipment and such that we're working on is highly portable. This is the sort of thing that when we're done, we could theoretically go to a new spot and in anywhere from a couple of days to a week, set up the pleasure and fun. It's a challenge, Mohammed. It's a game. And I'm trying to solve the puzzle. That's probably kind of the best way to put it.
Right.
From a normal person's standpoint, as somebody who likes puzzles,
Right.
Putting together finishing crossword puzzles isn't very exciting to me. It's kind of boring. Some people find it interesting, but to me, it is a puzzle, and I'm trying to understand it and solve it
and successfully, make it economically viable.
Yeah.
Bryce, to answer your question, I do believe it is part 46.
Yep.
I'll look into that a little more after the show tonight, but I do believe it is part 46, metal, non-metal, 8-hour training course. I think actually the original course when I took it was 24 hours. It was a whole week. But I can also ask if somebody can come out and possibly, I need to update mine anyway. So
sure,
maybe I can get a group of us together and get an instructor that we can all actually do it.
Lauren would probably like that too.
Because you should have it even if you don't use it. And it's not a huge expense if we get, 5 or 6 guys or 10 guys together and do the training.
Yep, that would be good.
And then once we have it, you can actually train. You can get your training certificate basically, and you can train your own people. If you bring somebody new onto the group or what, you can train them yourself and sign off on them. No, Mohammed, we'll have snow here yet till probably the 15th of May and maybe slightly beyond that up in the passes, depending on where you want to get to.
Yeah, there's plenty of snow on the snow's still on the mountain. It didn't come down very deep this winter. At least I don't think it did.
Yeah.
It was a fairly dry winter. Down here at this elevation, the only place you see any snow is the piles that were pushed up by the snow plows.
Yeah, here in town we're actually, I don't know, the last couple of days we've almost had like mild spring weather, 52 degrees or something today. It was really nice. It was nice out.
Yeah.
Little windy, cool wind, but nice out.
It would have been a good day to be working hard outside because it would have been cool enough you can really work your muscles without, getting all hot and sweaty and stuff.
Well, Goldstream, there's some passes up here that I got to move some equipment through that they might not be open until after the 4th of July, unless we go through with the dozer and open them to clear the road. So we're not far from that. I mean, we can freeze any month of the year here, and we can have snow any month of the year here. Just depends on what elevation you're at.
Yeah, I say it depends on what location. Do the mountains on the western end of the state get more snow?
South of here has had quite a bit more snow, and east over south of Billings and over in there's had a lot more snow. And then northwest of here, they've had a lot more snow.
Okay.
So, we just happen to be in this little pocket here where
we're in a salubrious climb.
Bryce, I may be able to get that down cheaper if I bring in a trainer. I'll call a few guys that I know and see if somebody's certified to come out. We may be able to get that down to less than $100 a person or something for the information and get our certificates.
Mohammed, there is snow in the desert. It depends. Like I lived in Tucson, which is definitely desert. In Tucson itself, they would get snow that would last half a day, like every 3 or 4 years. But there's mountain ranges around there that, I mean, I could go skiing. I could drive 1 hour from my home in Tucson and be up 9,000 feet in elevation and hop on a ski lift and go skiing.
Yeah.
So it has a lot to do with elevation. You'll also get a lot more rain on the mountains because as the air moves across the land, if it hits the mountains and rises up, that starts the cooling. And all it has to do is have enough moisture and heat in it. Now you get thunderstorms forming.
Okay, Lawrence said he'd be in. And
yeah.
All right, Bryce, give me a day or two to make some phone calls here and see what I can line up. Because maybe we can, because Keith said he'd like to do his.
Absolutely.
I mean, if we can get a few people together, we can get it updated for everybody, and then you're good. Whether you want to go work in a gravel pit or whatever you want to do, you've got your certificate.
I'm sure Eva would like to go too if it doesn't start at 8 a.m.
Yeah. For something like that, I will get up at 8 a.m.
But yeah,
I already have to get up at 8
a.m.
to go to the oncologist this week.
Yep. Well, that's right. You got to get up tomorrow.
All right, Bryce.
Get up early.
Well, that would get us enough people that if we can get somebody, I think it shouldn't be too hard to.
Yep.
I'll make a couple calls and we'll try to get something lined up and then figure out when it can work for everybody.
That's right. Tomorrow it's Tuesday.
Yep. Thanks for bringing that up, little one.
Because it's something that I've been meaning to get updated anyway for my own stuff. So.
Oh goodness! I have a phone here somewhere. There it is.
A phone?
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was laying up here.
It might have been.
It's laying behind that jar, isn't it?
Okay, let me set my alarm because you just got a doctor's appointment in the morning. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea, Bryce. So, it shouldn't take much to get us some people. And I'm thinking my partner Brad would probably come down and do his too. So we could probably get a dozen people. I don't know. If we put the word out a little bit.
Yeah, that might work.
Well, that'll help offset the cost and make it cheaper for all of us individually.
Yeah, that'd be great. So what is the official annual precipitation here in Helena? Any idea?
I have no clue.
Well,
It's not as much versus if you look at, like Avon on the other side of the mountain or something. I know that much.
Annual precipitation
for Helena, Montana.
For Helena.
There you go.
There we go. Finally got it.
Average annual rainfall less than an inch.
No. 10 days of snow. No, that's not.
That's
great.
probably for this day.
That's probably
Average
for a day
that's
or
for
something.
Today, a date.
Yeah, climate Helena. Other averages. Annual precipitation, 5.5 inches per year.
So we're technically a desert.
Yeah, we really are on this east side of the mountain. We really are.
Yeah. So does that help, Mohammed? About what is it? 100.
Oh, Mohammed, yeah, absolutely. I'm always looking for an opportunity. I carry pans in my truck and screens and buckets and pickaxe and shovels. And yeah, I mean, whether it's finding a little gold just for fun or finding it to be a mining situation, it's all good. And what you're doing, that's why I've been following your channel. And guys, if you want to, watch what Mohammed's doing, he's got his own channel under his name there. He's getting into some pretty serious prospecting. He's finding some gold. He's having some fun. It's fun to watch him, especially when I can't be out doing it right now. he's, it's pretty neat to start seeing your, results, successful results
Right,
of what
Amy.
you're doing. It looks like he's on a couple of drainages that actually have gold, which even makes it more fun. He's actually finding some.
I must admit, it is kind of fun actually having some physical gold in my hand instead of assay reports.
Yeah, even a little bit, just to be able to look at it and say, wow, I got some gold. It wasn't, the chase is definitely fun, but honestly, seeing a little bit of gold and seeing that you've got some success is awesome.
Yeah.
And I've been kind of helping him a little bit if I can. I've made some suggestions to him, and it's like, keep it up. You're on the right track. You're doing the right things, and you're learning.
Yeah, we're we're up to a little over 7 grams now.
Yeah.
And if we can get that other stuff fixed, 10 grams of the stage 1 resin should be a gram of gold for each 10 grams of resin.
Yeah, that's my truck's kind of the same way, Goldstream. Occasionally I have to reorganize, but it's you never know what you're going to find, but if you're looking, you're probably going to find something sooner or later.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've been watching a lot of people's different videos lately and going back to, some videos. Doc down at Gold Hog did some really good videos on how a sluice box should work. I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Those are good videos I would suggest to anybody if you're playing around with cleaning equipment, and to understand how it really works and why will help you catch more gold and not lose it.
I have been focused more on, lately, of course, just the health thing for the last 2 weeks here, but I've been so busy doing stuff now with Lauren, who's been so helpful, because we've got a facility I can go out there.
That's just awesome.
Be comfortable in. I don't know if you noticed it on that last video, but you heard sound in the background. There was a news thing. He's got a big screen TV and he got speakers throughout the whole thing, so you can turn on a channel. And
Jim, you gotta join us out there with it.
I will. I'll get out there. We'll get out there. But
yeah, but we now that has really helped things out a bit. And because I can actually get stuff done.
That's gaming. You're right. It's trying to keep the fever at bay, because man, with the nice sunny days we've had, even the last couple of days, I just want to be outside. I've even been tempted to walk down to 10 Mile Creek just to pan a little bit, just to be outside doing something,
Well, when Coulter came by from Mining Magnets, we went down to 10 Mile Creek at Green Meadow Road.
Yeah.
And went down there. Yeah, we found a little bit of gold.
Yeah, there's gold. It's just.
You didn't tell me that you found gold down there.
Oh yeah, just a couple little spots.
Well, they can all help you too, Mohammed. That's the cool part about doing this. Is if we can all help each other, it's just really cool. And to see other people having success, especially when you're, you kind of know them in a way, you talk to them or you communicate back and forth. It's really cool, because that's what it's all about. If everybody can go out and find a little and have some success and have some fun and create stories, how good is that? I heard that. I heard rumor of that, Bryce. I was actually putting stuff in my camper the other day, starting to think through what I want in the camper.
So I'm lucky. I've done well this winter because I had so much stuff to do on a small scale that I could do indoors. It's kept me busy.
I'm chomping at the bit to get. I just got a new little Gold Hog cleanup. It's a little river sluice, but they also added the water part to it and everything now, where it can make a nice little cleanup sluice for quick stuff, or for running a little, a few buckets of material just to see, versus panning. And it's a bilge pump and a battery, real easy to carry and get into somewhere. So I'm just excited to get out and start hunting again.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I'd say I've got to get that mill lined up so we can really start processing some stuff. I've got
I want a nice polymetallic with a lot of chalcopyrite and some silver. Oh, and some crystals. Plenty of crystals.
I've got like 2 or 3 tons of crushed or ready for impact milling, and I've got probably another 2, maybe 3 tons of big rock. It was just basically bigger than the RC46
Right,
could
so
eat
you
well. So I just piled it up.
Yeah, pile it up and leave it for, the big jaw crusher.
Yeah, that's a beast.
Yeah.
That wouldn't take long to eat that up. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, and there's another one from Western Australia that I've been watching lately. Oh man, I got to think prospecting and finding gold or something. I'll have to look it up and I'll suggest it to you guys. But the guy really knows his prospecting and testing to zone in on where the gold is coming from.
Uh-huh.
And he had this one site on a video the other day that he had all these little holes about the size of a 5-gallon pail. And he must have had 50 or 60 of those holes across there, about 5 feet apart, trying to zone in on where the best mineralization was coming from. And I thought, this guy is not, he's putting some energy.
He's not messing around.
No, he is not messing around, but he's also been very, very successful in finding that hard rock gold that's right under the surface and being able to get in there. No, it's not Vogus. It's another guy. I didn't bring my laptop tonight. Otherwise, I'd look it up quick. But it's about prospecting Western Australia or something like that. But the guy's been doing it. I think he's living off the gold he's making. I think he's been doing it for 20 years or so. But man, is it good. Yeah, it's loaming, but it's serious loaming. I mean, this guy is not, he's putting out the energy to figure out where is this stuff coming up out of the ground at, and then he's digging it out. He's sinking a shaft, and it's serious. And he's done multiple times. He's had some big anomalies that he's found with a lot of gold. And he starts out as a prospector. He's doing it all from the, doing historical, going out to a site, put a metal detector on the ground, panning here and there a little bit, dry panning, wet panning. And then when he zones in on a little, maybe a nugget patch or something, then he tries to figure out where's it coming from. And it's some serious prospecting. He's awesome to watch what he's doing.
There's all kinds of good prospecting channels out there.
Yeah, he's, got his tent and his truck and his gear, and he's got an RC46 crusher like you've got that he's used, and he's created a bunch of his own equipment, out of parts and pieces, but it works. He's getting the gold out of the rock.
Oh, Lauren, I'm looking at
gaming. He's hitting really good reefs.
I'm looking at getting some ceramic plate sort of stuff for lining the bottom of my kiln and such. Are you looking for some too? So if I order some, I'll know how much to get. Because I was thinking that it would be nice to have some for yours and a spare for mine and this and that. I'm thinking a 12-inch square I could cut into 4 6-inch squares, and that'd probably give us four bottoms for 2 kilns, which would work out. But anyhow, I say let me know on that, and I'll see. Though I see something that looks good, and is reasonably priced, I'll see about getting a little bit. Oh
well, yeah, gaming. Yeah, that's the guy, and he's some of his videos go back, I don't know, 20 years. I mean, he's been doing what he's doing a long, long time. But what's interesting is his system that he's developed in doing it. And he's got some current videos that he actually just released in the last few weeks. But that's the kind of things you want to be doing. You want to pay attention, because those things, even right here in Montana or Colorado or wherever, Nevada, Arizona, those things exist yet, but it's a matter of, thinking outside the box, but zoning in on the zone. And if you can find something that was never found, it could be rich beyond your dreams.
I got some pretty good dreams.
Me too. Me too. But there is some things out here yet that are yet to be found, and they're going to be rich, and they're probably, within a foot or two of the surface and have been walked over for 100 years. Yeah. And everybody goes over there instead of going, well, why not over here?
Yeah, sometimes it's just, the natural path to get you from point A to point B leads you in a particular spot, because that's the way the energy of locomotion says this is the way to go.
Yeah, Mohammed, the environment is different. We've got a lot more topsoil than that wind-blown Australia, Western Australia or something. More vegetation. We got a lot more issues that make it harder. But there is some things that the old timers, the only thing they had was their pan and their eyesight. We've got electronics. We've got better cleanup equipment. We can, we understand it a lot better. There's a lot more research to understanding where the gold probably would have came from in an environment. We've got a lot of advantages that the original people that found this stuff never had. And that's why it really could be quite interesting to what will be found in the near future in an environment like this, where we do have a lot of gold and silver and copper, and we've got the mineralization. It's a matter of finding those spots that were completely overlooked or missed, or have never had a metal detector on them.
A lot of stuff's never been metal detected.
Well, most stuff. Honestly, there's so much land here that's never had a metal detector on it. There's areas where the guys in the 70s got lucky, like in the Scratch Gravel Hills right here out of town, where they found out they could find nuggets by tipping the ground over with a plow, on a farm field. And that set off some crazy stuff. But
that's right, Chris. The electrons hate you.
Yeah. No, the gaming, though, the old timers only found, I honestly would say probably only 10% of what's out there. The problem is part of that percentage is deep, but if you could find the source close to surface or anomalies that dictate putting a drill hole in the ground, it could be really crazy.
Okay, Lauren, I'll talk to you about it tomorrow. I'm looking for something to put on that bottom to really protect it from spills, because that seems to be an issue. And not that I've spilled a whole lot, but the little bit I have, it eats it up quick.
Right, yeah, it tears it up.
Yeah, it tears it up good.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
Yep.
But, we'll continue to come up with an additional subject here as much as we can as we go into summer. We'll continue to do this if we're available, all the time.
Oh, yeah. I'll be having fun all summer and putting out videos, too. It'd be nice to get back, get my strength back, and then just, I like tearing up rock.
Well, that's part of it, big part of it.
I just do.
Find out what's in that stuff.
And it's one of those deals that I just like carving rock. That's weird. I also like landscaping.
I'm past that part. I've done that. Big project stuff with equipment's not so bad, but
I know. It's not bad with equipment either.
I opened a lot of damn mine portals with a wheelbarrow or buckets and a pickaxe and a shovel. And some of them were worth it and some of them were absolutely not worth it.
Okay, gaming wins. The question is, what's basically mineable ore grade, etc. And in hard rock, like I'm dealing with here, if the ground control is relatively simple, my rule of thumb is 1 ounce to the ton, 1 foot wide, or 1/2 ounce to the ton, 2 foot wide. should be profitable if you got a reasonable amount of it, and say you don't have a lot of serious complications. In the case of placer, in a small scale placer operation like Bryce has got, probably what, $12-15 a ton.
I would say with where fuel is going right now, even though gold has went up, you'd probably still want to be $15 a ton or better, or even $15 a yard, which is a little more than a ton, but a ton and a half. If you looked at it in grams, it would, you're probably talking a half. That'd be 40, so a quarter of a gram or so per yard, roughly, or better. You're somewhere around $80 a gram right now. So,
Blind Dude, they make these little weighing boats for putting on scales, and I found that they seem to be really good at not having static, or at least the ones Lauren got. Even the resin, which tends to be very staticky, doesn't seem to stick to them. And it's nice because you can put it in there, weigh it, and then tip it out of there, and it comes out the corner. So that works out pretty good for what we're doing.
Mohammed, the answer to that question is the least amount possible, but sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes my backpack will be 40 pounds or better, depending on what I'm carrying with me to do what I'm doing. Ideally, I like to go into an area with the least amount of weight, maybe my water bottles that are the heaviest thing in my backpack, my mining pick, and go really do just some research, see the area, see what I think, possibly take some small, 1 pound type samples or something to bring back out with me. Some areas I can use my four-wheeler, my quad. Some areas, you can use the pickup maybe. Some areas, you're down to hiking.
Well, with me, I try and keep it fairly close to the truck. The pack I wear usually weighs about 15 or 20 pounds. Again, a big portion of that is water. And if I'm staking claims, then another heavy load is the stakes.
Yep.
But you can also load up a pack real quick with rock samples too. So that's another thing that can weigh a lot, or buckets or whatever. So probably my maximum load cross country is about 50 pounds total between what I'm carrying on my back and what I'm carrying in my hand.
Yeah.
Because I usually won't go more than about 20, 25 pounds in the bucket.
Yeah.
If I'm going cross country.
Ideally, the least amount of weight you can carry, the better, but it just depends on where you're going to and for what reason.
Silver deposits can be good. The extraction gets a little bit more complicated than with
the processing
than gold.
The issue.
But that's about
if
it.
You've got really heavy galena, a lot of lead or something, it creates some situations where sorry about that, Chris. That's too bad, but I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, you usually get some gold too. You can also have gold with silver. The Montana B is like the silver is 1/10 to 1-to-1 with the gold, depending upon the particular sample. But
so it's a secondary mineral.
In the resins, it's been pretty much gold. It's if I haven't inquarted anything, those beads are yellow. So
it's.
Yep.
That's why you definitely want to do assaying and testing to find out what you're working with. And that kind of allows you to figure out how much you can spend or invest and, start working on what the returns could be.
Yeah. Well, and other stuff too, like this winter, things like that little smelting furnace screwing up. Now's the time you want it to screw up.
Right now, when you
so that
really
you can figure out
it,
what the weaknesses are, how to address them, how to get it working properly and reliably.
I totally agree.
So that when you're mining, you're moving rock, you're moving gold, you're not stopping moving gold for something miscellaneous. You want to move the gold when it's time to mine. You want to mine, get the mine and the mill going and just roll.
Yeah, there's some big advantages to finding the right property.
Yeah. The how much you're hiking is really important. And is it fairly flat, easy ground, or is it steep mountainsides with lots of brush on it? It can vary enormously. Most of the stuff I've seen from Australia seems to be pretty much desert. Hey, Tricky, how's it going?
Hey, Tricky.
How did your daughter think of the Eva's High anyway? I'm curious how her reaction was. But I say it's. What did you miss?
Not a lot. I kind of went over some. I think you kind of left when I was doing the prospecting to a mine a little bit.
Yeah, that's always convenient, blind dude. If it's a short, easy run,
that's always super.
She was happy, says Tricky.
Cool.
Thank you, Tricky. That was good. Glad to do that. Makes us happy too. Oh, well, I'm getting
Tricky has beautiful kids.
I'm getting a little bit tired here. So, anyone else got any more questions? Anything to address here? Or are we just shooting the bull? Because the bear's pretty tired, and so I think we can put the bull down if we can, if we're done here.
Well, that's what happens when you no longer have two nuts.
Oh.
Next thing we know, you're going to
the
get
rest
a big
of my life.
Yeah, he's going to haunt you.
Well, at least his voice hasn't gone up.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Man.
He wasn't looking at dresses at the store.
It's just like predators, Show them one sign of weakness, and boom, boom,
they
boom,
eat
they go right for it, man.
Well, I'm waiting to see if his body hair starts falling out. I'm waiting to see if he ends up being a hairless bear.
No, the official
I
nickname
doubt it.
is Lefty, Tricky.
Lefty.
Or
there's no end to it.
half-wit.
Tricky, we're going to have a lot of fun with this.
Well, yeah, he doesn't have the balls to hit back. Yeah.
I'll just have to do it like a woman, sneak up behind and stick a knife in your back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, you have to sleep sometimes. We all know this.
You too, blind dude.
Blind dude, thanks for being here. All of you people, thank you for the questions
Good
and
night,
the comments.
everybody.
Nice. Thanks for showing up, gaming.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah, it was funny. I was telling Eva's son Ryan about the way I got treated up there at Great Falls.
Yeah.
And he said, if it was me, I would have just adjusted the IV. And it's like, yeah, but you've got training. Anyhow, okay, I'm going to start the usual thing. Any questions? Going once. Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
Be chatting with you in the next day or two. Probably come out Wednesday is my thought. Hopefully by then I'll have that heating element material and we can work on that. That should be kind of fun. I've never made a heating element out of wire before. That's going to be something
I
interesting.
always wondered, looking at it, I'm thinking, well, they must have just bent it,
Well,
you
just
said.
spiral. You just take a rod and
wrap it around.
chuck it in a drill and then feed it on there, just like you were loading a reel, so to speak.
Spread it out and makes sense.
Night, Lars.
Yeah, night, Lars. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Oh, sounds good, Tricky. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, going twice. Any questions? Any better than average testicle jokes?
I'll be out there, Lauren. I'll get there.
Thank you, Goldstream. Well, I don't see any new questions or whatever. How do you figure the length of wire? By the resistance. In order to get the right amperage through it, so you don't overheat or, you're effectively using the electricity. You have to get the right resistance in ohms. The current element's about 10.4 ohms, which with this wire should be around between 25 and 30 feet. So you take an ohm meter, double it over and hold it with an insulator and measure it and find out when you get that ohm and mark it. And that's the length of your element. And then you can, coil it up at that point. Okay, Gennaro. Okay, so. Yep, that's all it is, Jeff. I'm learning too, so it makes it a lot easier to teach when you've learned it recently. Because then you think, what is it? I didn't remember,
Right.
Exactly. Okay, well, I guess we're going to call it a night then. Everybody have fun. And we will talk to you next week. Or if there's some really important breaking news, we may do an emergency tinfoil hat report. If you see emergency tinfoil hat report, you're going to want to tune in. Trust me.
We may also be doing an analysis of a mining report this week, if I can get Mr. Lefty over there to read it.
Okay. All righty. You guys take care. Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there. Now, what was that? We were going to look